What happens when a billion-dollar CEO accidentally sits on a single father's lap in a crowded cafe? The coffee spills. The apologies fly. But what comes next will change two broken hearts forever. This is the story of Noah Walker, a man who's been running a failing bookstore and raising his daughter alone since the day his wife walked out. And Avery Lynn, a woman who built an empire but lost herself in the process. When their worlds collide in the most unexpected way, they'll discover that sometimes the greatest risk isn't failure, it's letting someone in. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain had been threatening all morning, hovering over the city like an indecisive guest at a party, and by 11:30, it finally made up its mind. Fat drops began hammering the sidewalks of downtown Seattle, sending pedestrians scurrying for cover like ants fleeing a flood. The Riverside Cafe, a narrow brick-walled establishment called the River's Edge, went from pleasantly busy to absolutely packed in the span of 3 minutes. Noah Walker had been sitting at his usual corner table for exactly 42 minutes. He knew this because he'd checked his watch twice, a nervous habit he'd developed over the past 3 years. Tuesday mornings were sacred. They were the one pocket of time in his otherwise chaotic week when he could pretend, just for an hour or two, that he was a person with choices. That he wasn't a 34-year-old man whose life had been split cleanly into before and after by a single devastating moment. Before. Married, optimistic, co-owner of a beloved neighborhood bookstore that actually made money. After. Alone, exhausted, sole proprietor of a beloved neighborhood bookstore that was hemorrhaging cash faster than he could count it. He took a sip of his coffee, black, no sugar, the way he'd learned to drink it when luxury items like cream and sweeteners started feeling frivolous, and tried to focus on the book open in front of him. The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. He'd been trying to finish it for 6 weeks now, but his brain refused to cooperate. Every paragraph felt like walking through mud. The cafe door swung open again, and a gust of wind-driven rain swept in along with a woman who looked like she'd just stepped out of a boardroom war. She was tall, with razor-sharp features softened only slightly by the dark hair that clung to her cheeks in wet strands. Her charcoal suit was expensive. Noah had worked retail long enough to recognize quality tailoring, and utterly drenched. She stood in the doorway for a moment, water pooling around her heels, and surveyed the cafe with the intensity of a general assessing a battlefield. Noah glanced away quickly, returning his eyes to his book. He'd learned not to stare. People didn't appreciate being looked at, especially not by tired-looking men in coffee shops. "Excuse me, sorry, coming through." The woman's voice cut through the ambient noise like a knife. She was moving through the cafe now, weaving between tables with surprising agility given her heels. "Is anyone sitting here?" "No. Great, thank you." Noah heard her approaching his corner but didn't look up. His table was small, barely big enough for one person, and there was clearly no extra chair. She'd pass right by. Except she didn't. What happened next occurred in a sequence of events that Noah's brain would replay in excruciating slow motion for days afterward. First, the woman appeared in his peripheral vision, moving quickly, distracted, her phone pressed to her ear. Second, she seemed to make a judgment call about the availability of the chair at his table based on a glance that lasted perhaps 1/4 of a second. Third, she sat down. Unfortunately, Noah was already occupying that chair. "Oh my!" The woman's exclamation was cut off by Noah's own surprised grunt as approximately 130 pounds of executive landed directly in his lap. His coffee cup, which he'd been holding loosely in his right hand, achieved brief flight before rotating in midair and distributing its contents in a perfect arc across the table. His book, his shirt, and most impressively, the woman's very expensive-looking laptop bag, which she'd dropped onto the table a split second before impact. For a moment, neither of them moved. The cafe seemed to hold its breath. Noah could feel the heat from the coffee soaking through his shirt. He could feel the woman's weight pressing against his thighs, her elbow digging into his ribs. He could smell her perfume, something subtle and probably criminally expensive. Most of all, he could feel the absolute mortification radiating from her in waves as her brain caught up with what had just happened. Oh God, I am so. She scrambled upward, her heel catching on the chair leg, which caused her to pitch forward instead. Noah's hand shot out on instinct, catching her by the shoulders before she could faceplant into the table. Whoa, careful. I thought you were. I didn't see. There's nowhere to sit, and I just. She finally managed to get her feet under her and spun around to face him, her face flushed scarlet. I am so incredibly sorry. I just sat on you. I literally just sat on a stranger in a coffee shop. Noah looked down at his coffee-soaked shirt, then at his ruined book. Ishiguro's prose now decorated with brown splatters, then back up at the woman, whose expression had progressed from mortified to genuinely distressed. He could see her mental calculations happening in real time. Lawsuit potential, social media disaster, career implications of assaulting random citizens with her body weight. And then something happened that surprised him more than the actual sitting incident. He laughed. It wasn't a polite chuckle or a forced attempt to ease tension. It was a real laugh, the kind that started in his chest and bubbled up before he could stop it, the kind he hadn't experienced in so long that it felt almost foreign. I'm sorry, he managed, trying to get control of himself. I'm not laughing at you. Well, I am, but not in a mean way. It's just... Another laugh escaped. That was possibly the most unexpected thing that's happened to me in 3 years. The woman stared at him like he'd started speaking Mandarin. You're laughing? Yeah. Noah grabbed a handful of napkins from the dispenser and began dabbing ineffectually at his shirt. Yeah, I guess I am. Though, in fairness, my day's already ruined, so this is just extra. Your day's ruined? She was still standing there, frozen, like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I just assaulted you with myself, and destroyed your coffee and your book and probably your... Is that a phone in your pocket, or did I break something important? Noah pulled his ancient iPhone from his pocket. The screen was intact. Survived. This thing's basically indestructible. I think it's actually older than some of the technology in this cafe. I'll pay for everything. The words came out fast, businesslike. A woman used to solving problems with money. The coffee, the book, your shirt. Is that vintage? It looks vintage. I'll replace it. It's from Target. Divi Tukstoshi Devinpad Smart. Noah looked at the spreading coffee stain. I think it was $15. I'll give you 20. That's really not 50. Your time, your dignity. I'll give you $50 right now. She was already reaching for her bag. Please don't. Noah held up his hands. Honestly, it's fine. It's just a shirt. And the book was from the library, so I guess I owe them a new copy, but that's on me for bringing it to a coffee shop. The woman stopped mid-reach and looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Confusion, suspicion, like she was trying to figure out what he was really after, what his angle was. You're not mad, she said slowly. It wasn't a question, more like she was testing out the words to see if they made sense. I mean, I'm wet. Noah gestured at his shirt. And I was enjoying that coffee. But mad? No. Honestly, this is the most interesting thing that's happened to me in weeks, maybe months. She paused, recalibrating. That's really sad, actually. Tell me about it. A woman at the next table had been watching the entire exchange with poorly concealed interest. She caught Noah's eye and stage whispered, Is this how you two met? Because if so, that's the best story ever. The executive woman's face, which had just started to return to its normal color, flushed red again. We just met, Noah confirmed, trying not to smile. Very literally, very physically. The woman closed her eyes briefly as if praying for divine intervention or spontaneous invisibility. When she opened them again, she'd visibly collected herself, pulling on what Noah recognized as a professional mask. He'd seen it before on customers who came into the bookstore to buy leadership books and memoirs of successful people. The armor of competence. I should go, she said. I'll leave you alone. Again, I'm so sorry. If there's anything here... She pulled a business card from somewhere. Noah had no idea where. The woman was like a magician. and placed it on the table, carefully avoiding the coffee puddles. If you change your mind about compensation, for dry cleaning or whatever. Noah glanced at the card. Heavy stock, minimalist design. Avery Lynn, CEO, Lynn Tech Solutions. A cell phone number. An email address that was just her first name at lyntechsolutions.com. CEO. Of course she was. I don't think my shirt requires dry cleaning, he said. But thank you. She nodded once, sharp and professional, then grabbed her laptop bag, now sporting several coffee stains of its own, and turned to leave. There are no seats, Noah heard himself say. She stopped, turned back. What? In the cafe. You said there were no seats. You were right. They're all taken. He gestured at his table. You already sat here once, technically. If you want to sit here again, in a more conventional arrangement, that's fine. I'm just reading. Well, I was reading. Now I'm just sitting. Avery Lynn stared at him like he'd offered her a live grenade. You want me to sit with you? I'm offering you a seat, Noah corrected. There's a difference. You look like you're having a day. I know I'm having a day. We could both sit here and have our respective days in the same general vicinity. No conversation required. For a long moment, she didn't move. Noah could see the calculation happening again, different this time. Not liability assessment, something else, something more personal. Okay, she said finally, but I'm buying you a new coffee first. What were you drinking? Black coffee. Medium. That's it? No oat milk, no vanilla, no extra shot? That's it. She looked at him like he was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve, then nodded and headed to the counter. Noah watched her cut through the crowd with the same purposeful energy she'd brought into the cafe, speaking to the barista with the kind of efficient courtesy that suggested she'd spent a lifetime getting exactly what she wanted without being openly rude about it. He looked down at the business card again. Lynn Tech Solutions. He'd heard of them, vaguely. Software? Cloud services? Something in the tech sector that made millions, maybe billions. And their CEO had just accidentally sat on him in a coffee shop. Definitely the most interesting Tuesday in months. Avery returned 5 minutes later with 2 coffees. His black, hers something complicated and frothy, and a blueberry muffin on a plate. I didn't order a muffin, Noah said. I did. We're sharing it. Technically, I owe you breakfast for the assault, so... She sat down across from him, properly this time, in the empty chair that appeared when Noah shifted his wet book to the windowsill and pushed the plate to the middle of the table. You don't owe me anything. Humor me. I have a thing about debts. Noah broke off a piece of muffin. It was still warm. Fair enough? They sat in silence for almost a full minute, which should have been awkward, but somehow wasn't. The cafe noise, conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, rain hammering the windows, filled the space between them. I'm Avery, she said finally, but you already know that from the card. Noah. He offered his hand across the table. She shook it. Her grip was firm, businesslike, the handshake of someone who'd closed deals worth more than Noah would see in a lifetime. So, Noah, she wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. What made your day already ruined before I made it worse? He should have deflected, should have said something vague and polite. Instead, he told her the truth. I got an email this morning from the building owner. The rent on my bookstore is going up 30% next month, which is 30% more than I can afford. So I'm spending my Tuesday morning trying to figure out if I should close up shop now or wait until the eviction notice. Avery's expression shifted. Not pity. Noah had learned to recognize pity from a mile away, and he hated it, but something more like recognition. You own a bookstore? I do. Walker's Books. Over on Pike Street near the market. Small place. Mostly used books, some new releases, a decent kids section. It was my dad's store, then mine and my wife's, and now just mine. He paused. Soon to be nobody's, apparently. The market's tough for independent bookstores. Yeah, it is. Noah took a sip of coffee. It was perfect. Exactly the right temperature, exactly the right strength. But I've known that for years. I just kept thinking if I worked hard enough, if I was smart enough about inventory and events and community engagement, I could make it work. Turns out I was wrong. Or the system's wrong, Avery said. There's something deeply broken about a city where rents go up faster than small businesses can adapt. It's not about working hard. It's about being in a game that's rigged from the start. Noah looked at her with new interest. That's not what I expected a CEO to say. What did you expect? Something about market forces and efficiency. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, adapt or die. Avery's laugh was short and sharp. I run a tech company, Noah. I know exactly how rigged the game is. I also know that I'm one of the people benefiting from the rigging, which makes me either a hypocrite or a realist, depending on how generous you're feeling. Are you always this honest with strangers? No, she admitted. Never, actually. I don't know why I'm... She paused, looking genuinely puzzled. I don't know. You're easy to talk to. That's unusual. I get that sometimes. People tell me things in the bookstore. I think it's because I'm not trying to sell them anything except books. And even then, I'm not pushy about it. Creates a safe space for confession. Is that what this is? Confession? I don't know what this is, Noah said honestly, but it's better than sitting alone feeling sorry for myself, so I'll take it. Avery smiled, and for the first time since she'd stormed into the cafe, she looked almost relaxed. Almost. There was still something coiled tight beneath her surface, something that didn't know how to fully let go. Tell me about the bookstore, she said. Not the financial disaster parts. The good parts. So he did. Noah talked about the smell of old paper and worn leather, about the way sunlight slanted through the front windows in the afternoon and illuminated dust motes that looked like tiny galaxies. He talked about the regular customers who came in every week like clockwork. Mrs. Henderson, who only read historical romances, teenage Marcus, who was obsessively collecting every Haruki Murakami translation, old Mr. Chen, who fell asleep in the biography section every Saturday afternoon and always bought something when he woke up, like payment for the nap. He talked about the kids section in the back corner, the one he'd built himself from reclaimed wood, with beanbags and string lights, and a ceiling painted to look like a night sky. How children would sprawl on the floor for hours, completely absorbed, until their parents had to physically drag them out. He didn't mention his daughter, Lily. That felt too personal, too raw. But Avery was watching him with an intensity that suggested she heard what he wasn't saying anyway. It sounds magical, she said when he finished. It is. Or it was. I don't know anymore. Noah rubbed his eyes. Sorry, I don't usually unload on people like this. You're not unloading, I asked. Avery checked her phone, frowned, and silenced it without reading whatever message had come through. And for what it's worth, I think you should fight for it. Fight with what? I'm broke, Avery. Not struggling artist broke, actually broke. I've got about $3,000 in my business account and another $800 in personal savings. Lily's... He stopped himself. I have responsibilities that don't allow for big financial risks. Lily. He'd said her name. No taking it back now. My daughter. She's 8. Noah pulled out his phone and showed Avery his lock screen. Lily grinning at the camera, missing both front teeth, holding a stack of books almost as tall as she was. She's the real reason I can't let the store fail. It's not just a business to her. It's where she sees me being myself. Does that make sense? Avery studied the photo for a long moment. Yeah, she said quietly. That makes perfect sense. She doesn't know yet about the rent increase, the possibility of closing. I'm trying to figure out how to tell her without... Noah stopped, surprised by the tightness in his throat. Sorry. This got heavy fast. Don't apologize. Avery's voice had softened. I don't have kids. Never wanted them, honestly. But I understand legacy. I understand fighting for something that matters even when the odds suck. Is that what you do at Lintech? Sometimes, when I'm not sitting on strangers or spilling coffee on rare books. She smiled. Mostly I spend my days in back-to-back meetings, managing people who are smarter than me but less willing to make hard decisions, and trying to convince investors that our growth strategy isn't insane. Is it insane? Probably. Avery's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, sighed, and this time she read the message. Her expression tightened. I need to go. Conference call in 20 minutes, and I'm not even close to ready. Of course. Noah stood when she did, a habit from childhood that his mother had drilled into him. Thanks for the coffee, and the muffin, and the conversation. Thanks for not pressing charges for assault. Avery shouldered her bag, then hesitated. The bookstore. Walker's Books, you said, on Pike Street? Yeah, why? No reason, just curious. She smiled, but it looked different from before. More guarded, more calculated. The CEO mask sliding back into place. Good luck, Noah. With everything. You too. He watched her leave, cutting through the crowd with the same purposeful energy she'd brought in with, phone already pressed to her ear before she hit the door. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and through the window he could see her pause under the cafe awning, speaking rapidly to whoever was on the other end of the call, her free hand gesturing emphatically. Then she was gone, disappearing into the city like she'd never been there at all. Noah sat back down. His coffee was cold now, and his shirt was still wet, and the business card was still sitting on the table next to the empty muffin plate. He picked it up, running his thumb over the embossed lettering. He should throw it away. The woman was a CEO of a major tech company, and he was a failing bookstore owner who couldn't even afford his rent. Whatever that conversation had been, moment of connection, temporary insanity, pity, it was over now. She'd go back to her world of conference calls and investor meetings, and he'd go back to his world of overdue bills and impossible choices. But instead of throwing it away, Noah slipped the card into his wallet, just in case. When Noah got home that afternoon, later than planned because he'd stopped by the store to review the books one more time, as if staring at red numbers would somehow turn them black, Lily was sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Chen, their neighbor, who watched her after school 3 days a week. Dad! Lily launched herself at him with the force of a small missile. You're late. Mrs. Chen said I could only have 2 cookies, but I think 3 is more fair because it's Tuesday, and Tuesdays are hard. Tuesdays are hard? Noah swept her into a hug, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, strawberry, her current obsession. Since when? Since always. We have math tests on Tuesdays, and Hannah S. always tries to copy my answers, and Mrs. Morrison always gives us homework that's due Wednesday, which is basically mean. Mrs. Chen gathered her things with a smile. She finished her homework already, and had 2 cookies, not 3, despite vigorous negotiations. I'm raising a lawyer, Noah said. Or a CEO, Mrs. Chen replied, winking. Same thing, really. See you Thursday, Lily Bean. After she left, Noah made grilled cheese sandwiches, his specialty, the only meal he could prepare with genuine confidence, and listened to Lily's detailed report on her day. Hannah S.'s attempted test fraud, the tadpoles in the science classroom that were supposed to turn into frogs but seemed to be taking forever about it, the book she'd finished during lunch, something about dragons and friendship and a girl learning to fly. She was so alive, so present, so completely herself. 8 years old and already more emotionally intelligent than Noah had been at 30. She got that from her mother, the good parts. The curiosity, the fearlessness, the ability to find joy in small things, not the leaving. That was all her mother's too, but Lily didn't know that yet. She thought her mother lived far away and couldn't visit. She thought it was about distance, not choice. Noah had no idea how long he could maintain that fiction. Dad, you're doing the staring thing again. He blinked. Lily was watching him with concern, her grilled cheese halfway to her mouth. Sorry, Bean, just thinking. About the store? His daughter was too perceptive. What makes you think I'm thinking about the store? You always get this look, like you're trying to solve a really hard puzzle but all the pieces are missing. She took a bite of sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. Is the store okay? Noah made a split-second decision. Not the whole truth, she didn't need that burden, but not a complete lie either. The store's having a tough time right now, he said carefully. But I'm working on it. Nothing for you to worry about. Can I help? You already help, every day. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You're my secret weapon, you know that? That's not a real answer. It's the realest answer I've got right now. Lily studied him for a moment longer, then seemed to accept this. Okay. But if you need help for real, I have $7 in my piggy bank. You can borrow it. Noah had to look away before she could see his eyes getting wet. That's a very generous offer. I'll keep it in mind. That night, after Lily was asleep, After 2 bedtime stories, 3 glasses of water, and 1 long conversation about whether tadpoles had feelings, Noah sat at his laptop and forced himself to look at the numbers again. Income. Barely enough to cover utilities and a percentage of rent. Expenses. Everything else. Savings. Laughable. Options. None that he could see. He could ask for a loan, but his credit was shot from the divorce. He could look for investors, but who invested in failing bookstores? He could sell, but there were no buyers for a business with negative equity. He could close and find a regular job, something steady with benefits and a salary, but the thought of telling Lily they were losing the store made him physically ill. He was trapped in a maze with no exit, and the walls were closing in. Noah closed the laptop and picked up his phone instead. Opened Instagram, scrolled mindlessly through posts from people whose lives seemed infinitely more functional than his. A former classmate's vacation photos, a cousin's new baby, someone's artfully arranged breakfast. And then, almost without thinking, he typed Lintech Solutions into the search bar. The company's page was exactly what he'd expected: sleek, professional, full of photos of smiling employees and press releases about innovation and growth. But when he searched for Avery Lynn specifically, he found something else. Her personal account was private, but her professional one was public. Photos of her at conferences, shaking hands with people in expensive suits, articles she'd been featured in. Forbes, TechCrunch, Wired, a TED Talk about disruption and adaptation that had 2 million views. He clicked on the TED Talk, watched her command the stage with the same intensity she'd brought to the coffee shop. She was brilliant, clearly, articulate and confident and completely in control. The kind of person who saw problems as opportunities and obstacles as challenges to overcome. The kind of person who lived in a completely different universe than Noah Walker. He closed the browser, feeling foolish. What was he doing? She'd sat on him by accident, bought him a coffee out of guilt, and listened to him unload his problems for 30 minutes. That didn't mean anything. That wasn't the beginning of anything. But when Noah finally went to bed, he dreamed of a riverside cafe and a woman who laughed like she'd forgotten how, and the possibility, however remote, that sometimes accidents led to something unexpected, something like hope. The next morning arrived with the kind of gray drizzle that made Seattle feel like it was wrapped in wet wool. Noah was measuring coffee grounds into the ancient machine in his kitchen when his phone buzzed with an email notification. He almost ignored it. Most of his emails lately were either automated reminders about unpaid invoices or cheerful newsletters from book distributors he could no longer afford to order from. But something made him check. The subject line stopped him cold. Walker's Books. Interested Party Inquiry. His heart did something complicated in his chest as he opened it. The message was brief, professional, and completely unexpected. Mr. Walker, I came across your store's information and would like to discuss a potential collaboration opportunity. Would you be available for a brief meeting this week? I'm happy to work around your schedule. Best regards, A. Martinez, Community Outreach Coordinator. There was a phone number at the bottom and a corporate email signature that meant nothing to Noah. No company name, no additional context, just the vague promise of a collaboration opportunity, which could mean anything from a book club wanting to use his space to some multi-level marketing scheme. But beggars couldn't be choosers, and Noah was rapidly approaching beggar status. He replied while Lily ate her cereal, keeping his tone professionally hopeful while trying not to sound desperate. Yes, he was available. Thursday afternoon worked well. Should he prepare anything specific for the meeting? The response came back within 5 minutes. Thursday at 2 p.m. is perfect. No preparation needed. Just bring yourself and an open mind. Dad, you're smiling at your phone, Lily observed, milk dripping from her spoon. That's weird. I'm not smiling. You totally are. It's your secret smile, the one you do when you think I'm not looking. Noah put the phone down. Eat your breakfast. We're going to be late. Late for what? School doesn't start for an hour. Late for getting ready for school. Lily gave him a look that suggested she saw right through this deflection, but she returned her attention to her cereal. Noah used the reprieve to get his racing thoughts under control. A collaboration opportunity. It probably meant nothing. It probably was nothing, but for the first time in weeks, he felt something other than dread about the store's future, something that felt dangerously close to hope. The rest of the week moved with agonizing slowness. Noah tried to focus on the normal rhythms of his life. opening the store at 9, helping customers find books they didn't know they needed, managing inventory he could barely afford to maintain, picking Lily up from school, making dinner, bedtime routines. But Thursday afternoon loomed in his mind like a lighthouse in fog, impossible to ignore. He didn't tell anyone about the meeting, not Mrs. Chen, not Marcus, who came in Tuesday afternoon looking for a specific Murakami essay collection, not even Mr. Chen, who fell asleep in his usual chair and woke up disoriented, buying a biography of Teddy Roosevelt that Noah was 90% sure he already owned. Wednesday evening, as Noah was locking up the store, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers were usually either spam or creditors, neither of which he had energy for, but something made him pick up. Walker's Books. This is Noah. There was a pause, then a woman's voice, slightly hesitant in a way that seemed unusual for her. Noah? It's Avery. Avery Lynn. From the cafe? I sat on you? Noah's brain took a moment to catch up. Avery. Hi. I remember. The sitting was pretty memorable. Right. Good. I wasn't sure if you'd... Anyway, she sounded almost nervous, which seemed impossible for someone who commanded boardrooms. I know this is random, but I was wondering if you were free for lunch tomorrow. I'm in your neighborhood for a meeting and thought maybe we could grab something quick. If you're not busy, which you probably are, running a bookstore and everything. Noah looked at the empty store around him, at the gaps on the shelves where books should be but weren't because he couldn't afford to restock them, at the reading corner where no children currently sat because it was closing time and also because fewer families were coming in lately. I could do lunch, he said. What time? 12:30? There's a Thai place on Pike, 2 blocks from your store. Sala Thai? I know it. I'll be there. Great. Perfect. I'll see you then. Another pause. And Noah? Thanks for saying yes. She hung up before he could ask why she was thanking him, leaving Noah standing in his empty bookstore holding a phone and wondering what exactly had just happened. Thursday morning crawled by with excruciating slowness. Noah opened the store at 9 to find exactly 0 customers waiting outside, which was becoming depressingly normal. By 11, he'd sold 3 books, 2 paperback mysteries to a tourist who seemed mildly disappointed that Seattle wasn't sunnier, and a poetry collection to a college student who paid in exact change counted out in quarters. At noon, he flipped the sign to back at 2 p.m. and walked the 2 blocks to Sala Thai, arriving 10 minutes early because he'd always been pathologically punctual. The restaurant was small and crowded, smelling powerfully of lemongrass and chili. Noah got a table near the window and tried not to obsess over the fact that he was having lunch with the CEO for reasons he didn't entirely understand. Avery arrived at 12:30 exactly, wearing dark jeans and a cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than Noah's monthly grocery budget. She looked different than she had at the cafe, less armored, more human. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup that he could see. "You're here," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "I was half convinced you'd stand me up." "Why would I stand you up?" "I don't know. Because I'm weird and pushy and called you out of nowhere to have lunch for no clear reason? Is there no clear reason?" Avery picked up the menu, studied it with unnecessary intensity. "There's a reason. I'm just not sure it's clear." A server appeared and they ordered pad thai for Noah, some kind of curry for Avery, Thai iced teas for both. The restaurant was loud enough that their conversation felt private despite the crowded tables around them. "So," Noah said when the server left, "what's the mysterious reason?" Avery set down her menu and met his eyes. "I can't stop thinking about your bookstore." "My failing bookstore. Your beloved bookstore that's failing because of systemic problems beyond your control." She leaned forward slightly. "I looked you up, Noah. Walker's Books has been in your family for 35 years. Your father started it. You took over after he died, and by all accounts it was a community institution until about 3 years ago when everything went sideways." Noah felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You researched me." "I researched the store." "There's a difference." Avery didn't look apologetic. "I wanted to understand what I was dealing with before I made an offer." "What kind of offer?" Their drinks arrived, buying Avery a moment to formulate her answer. She took a long sip of her Thai tea, then set it down with deliberate care. I want to help you save the store, she said simply. Not as charity, as an investment, a real one, with terms and expectations and a proper business plan. But I think Walker's Books is exactly the kind of small business that deserves to survive. And I think with the right support, it could not just survive, but actually thrive. Noah stared at her. You want to invest in my bookstore? Yes. Why? Because I have money, and you have something worth saving. Avery's expression was completely serious. And because I'm tired of watching tech companies eat cities alive while small businesses die. I know I'm part of that problem. Lintech's growth has contributed to rising rents and displacement all over Seattle. But maybe I can be part of the solution too, in a small way, starting with one bookstore. That's... Noah stopped, trying to find words for the tangle of emotions in his chest. Hope, suspicion, confusion, something dangerously close to anger. That's not how this works. You don't just invest in failing businesses because you feel guilty about gentrification. Why not? Because it's not sustainable. Because guilt isn't a business model. Because, he lowered his voice, aware that people at nearby tables were probably listening. Because you don't know me, Avery. We had one conversation. You sat on me and bought me a coffee and listened to me complain for half an hour. That's not a foundation for a business relationship. You're right, Avery agreed, which is why I'm not offering you anything today. I'm asking if you'd be willing to have a real conversation about the possibility. Let me see the store, meet with you properly, go through your books, the financial kind, not the reading kind. Let me understand what's actually broken and whether it can be fixed. If it can't, I'll walk away and we'll forget this conversation ever happened. If it can, maybe we work something out. No pressure, no obligation, just exploration. The food arrived, giving Noah an excuse to not respond immediately. He watched Avery thank the server with genuine warmth, saw the way she carefully tasted her curry before adding more chili from the table condiments, noticed how her shoulders had relaxed since she'd made her pitch. She looked younger like this, less like a CEO and more like a person who happened to run a company. Can I ask you something? Noah said finally. Anything. Is this really about the bookstore, or is it about something else? Avery's hand paused halfway to her mouth, fork loaded with rice and curry. She set it down slowly. What do you mean? I mean you run a billion-dollar tech company. You could write a check to a dozen nonprofits that support small businesses if you wanted to fight gentrification. You could start a foundation, fund a grant program, do something scalable and efficient. Instead, you're having lunch with one random bookstore owner you met by accident. Noah held her gaze. So I'm asking, is this really about business, or is it about something personal? For a long moment, Avery didn't answer. The restaurant noise, conversations, laughter, the clatter of dishes filled the space between them. Then she took a breath and did something Noah suspected she rarely did. She told the truth. My grandmother owned a bakery in San Francisco, she said quietly, in the Richmond district. She opened it in 1982 after she immigrated from Taiwan, and it was her entire world. She made these incredible pineapple cakes and moon cakes for Mid-Autumn Festival, and this specific type of milk bread that people would line up for. The neighborhood loved her. She loved the neighborhood. It was... Avery paused, her expression distant. It was magic, the way your bookstore sounds like magic. What happened to it? The building was sold in 2015. New owners wanted to renovate, bring in trendier tenants. They raised her rent by 60%. She couldn't afford it. She closed the bakery and moved in with my parents. Avery's voice had gone flat, carefully neutral. She died 6 months later. Heart attack, officially. But I think she didn't know how to exist without that bakery. It was her identity, her purpose. And someone took it away because they could make more money with a boutique fitness studio. Noah set down his fork. I'm sorry. I was working at a startup in Palo Alto when it happened. Making decent money, climbing the ladder, completely absorbed in my own ambitions. I barely visited. I kept meaning to, but there was always another launch, another crisis, another reason why I couldn't take a weekend. Avery met his eyes, and her expression was raw in a way that made Noah's chest ache. I never got to say goodbye to her, or to the bakery. And I've spent the last 9 years telling myself I'd make it right somehow. That I'd find a way to matter that wasn't just making rich people richer. And you think investing in my bookstore will do that? I think it's a start. Avery picked up her fork again, pushed food around her plate without eating. Or maybe I'm just projecting my guilt onto your situation, and this is all self-indulgent nonsense. I honestly don't know anymore. But when you talked about your store on Tuesday, about your daughter, about fighting for something that matters, it felt real. It felt like the opposite of everything I spend my days doing, and I wanted to be part of it, even in a small way. Noah absorbed this, turning it over in his mind. The explanation made sense. It was human and complicated and probably true, but it also scared him because hope was a dangerous thing, and he'd learned not to trust it. I need to think about this, he said finally. Of course. And if I say yes to letting you look at the store, I'm not promising anything beyond that. You might look at my books and realize it's a lost cause. That's fair. And I have a daughter, Avery. Whatever happens with the store, I can't take risks that might hurt her. She's been through enough already. Something shifted in Avery's expression. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. I would never ask you to risk your daughter's well-being. That's a line I won't cross. They finished lunch talking about safer topics. The neighborhood, the ridiculous Seattle weather, a book Avery had just finished that Noah had actually read years ago. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, like they'd known each other longer than a week. Like they were friends instead of strangers dancing around a business proposition that might save Noah's life or might blow up spectacularly in his face. When the check came, Avery grabbed it before Noah could protest. "This one's on me," she said. "Next time you can buy me coffee. At your store." That's assuming there is a next time. There will be, she smiled. I'm optimistic like that. Noah walked back to the bookstore alone, his head spinning with possibilities and dangers. He had a meeting at 2 with the mysterious A. Martinez about some collaboration opportunity, and now he had a potential investor who wanted to save his store for reasons that were equal parts business and grief. His life had gone from quietly desperate to complicated in the span of 1 week, and he had no idea how to feel about that. The store was still empty when he unlocked the door at 1:50. Noah used the 10 minutes before the meeting to tidy shelves that didn't need tidying and reorganize the front display for the 3rd time that week. Nervous energy, the kind that made him want to clean or run or do something physical with his hands. At exactly 2 o'clock, the bell above the door chimed. Noah turned from the shelf he'd been alphabetizing and felt the world tilt sideways. The woman who entered wasn't A. Martinez, it was a girl, a child. 8 years old, wearing a purple backpack covered in star stickers and clutching a piece of paper like it held the secrets of the universe. It was Lily. And behind her, looking apologetic and amused in equal measure, was Mrs. Chen. "Dad!" Lily's face lit up with the kind of pure joy that made Noah's heart hurt. "Surprise! I'm the collaboration opportunity." Noah looked from his daughter to Mrs. Chen, his brain struggling to process this development. "What?" Mrs. Chen stepped forward, smiling. "Lily came to me on Monday with a business proposal. A very detailed business proposal, actually. She wants to start a kids' book club at the store, Tuesday afternoons right after school. She's already recruited 5 friends and she made flyers." Mrs. Chen held up a sheet of paper covered in Lily's careful handwriting and enthusiastic illustrations. "I told her she needed to present it to you professionally, so we scheduled a meeting. I sent the email as A. Martinez because, well, that's my maiden name, and Lily thought you wouldn't take it seriously if you knew it was from her." Noah stared at his daughter, who was practically vibrating with excitement. "You scheduled a business meeting with me?" he asked. "Yes, a real one, with an agenda and everything." Lily pulled a folded paper from her backpack. "See? Agenda item 1. Introduce the kids' book club concept. Agenda item 2. Explain how it will bring more customers to the store. Agenda item 3. Discuss my compensation requirements." Compensation requirements. "I want to be paid in books. 1 per month. My choice." Lily's expression was completely serious. "That's very reasonable, Dad. Mrs. Chen said most consultants charge way more." Noah looked at Mrs. Chen, who was clearly trying not to laugh. "You helped her with this?" "She came up with it entirely on her own. I just helped with the professional framing, and the email, obviously. Mrs. Chen squeezed Lily's shoulder. I'll leave you two to your meeting. Good luck, Lily Bean. Remember what we practiced about projecting confidence. After Mrs. Chen left, Noah gestured to the reading corner. Shall we sit? They settled into the beanbags, and Lily carefully unfolded her agenda. For the next 20 minutes, Noah's 8-year-old daughter presented the most thorough and passionate business pitch he'd heard in years. She'd thought of everything: meeting time, participant limits, book selection process, parental permission requirements, snack protocols. She'd even created a survey to gauge interest among her classmates and had collected signed commitment forms from 5 kids whose parents had agreed to bring them. And the best part, Lily concluded, her eyes shining, is that all the parents will have to come into the store to pick us up. Mrs. Chen says that's called foot traffic, and when parents are waiting, they might buy books, which means more money for the store, which means we don't have to close. Noah's throat felt tight. You know about that? I'm 8. Not stupid, Dad. Lily's voice softened. I hear things. I know the store is in trouble. I know you're worried all the time, even though you try to hide it. So I made a plan to help, because that's what families do. Noah pulled his daughter into a hug, pressing his face against her hair so she wouldn't see the tears in his eyes. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't always notice because you're busy being stressed. Fair point. Noah pulled back, looked at her seriously. Okay, I accept your proposal. The kids' book club launches next Tuesday. Your compensation package is approved, 1 book per month, your choice. And Lily? Yeah? Thank you for caring about this place as much as I do. Lily grinned, gap-toothed and brilliant. It's our place, Dad. That's the whole point. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Noah sat at his laptop and wrote 2 emails. The first was to Avery. You can look at the store. Saturday morning, 10 a.m., if that works for you. Fair warning, the numbers are worse than I made them sound. But if you're serious about this, I'm willing to explore it. Bring your accountant brain and your realistic expectations. And maybe coffee. Noah. The second was to the building owner. Received your notice about the rent increase. I need 30 days to explore some options before I can give you a definitive answer on renewal. I hope you can accommodate this request. The store has been here for 35 years, and I'd like to give it every possible chance to stay. Thank you for your consideration. He hit send on both before he could second-guess himself. His phone buzzed 5 minutes later. A text from an unknown number that he somehow knew was Avery. Saturday, 10 a.m. works. I'll bring the coffee and the realistic expectations. See you then. Noah looked around his small apartment, at the stack of unpaid bills on the counter, at Lily's backpack spilling over with books and papers, at the framed photo of his father on opening day of Walker's Books in 1988, grinning like a man who'd just won the lottery. His father had believed in impossible things. He'd believed that a small bookstore could matter, that stories could change lives, that community was worth more than profit. And he'd been right. For 35 years, he'd been right. Maybe it was time for Noah to start believing in impossible things, too. The next day brought a steady trickle of customers. Not enough to save the store, but enough to remind Noah why it mattered. A teenager looking for college essay inspiration. An elderly man buying poetry for his wife's birthday. A mother with twins who spent 45 minutes in the kids section while Noah read picture books in different voices until his throat hurt. And at 3:30, something unexpected happened. The door chimed and a woman entered, professional, polished, carrying a leather portfolio. She approached the counter where Noah was processing a return and smiled. Mr. Walker, I'm Jennifer Huang. I write for the Seattle Observer. I'm doing a series on small businesses fighting to survive in the current economy, and I heard Walker's Books might be a good story. Would you be willing to talk to me? Noah blinked. How did you hear about us? An anonymous tip. Someone sent me a very detailed email about your store's history and community impact. They seem to think your story deserved to be told. Jennifer pulled out a notebook. So what do you say? Can I buy you a coffee and ask you some questions? Noah thought about Avery, about mysterious emails and unexpected interventions. He thought about his father, who'd never turned down a chance to talk about books. He thought about Lily, who'd scheduled herself a business meeting to save the store she loved. Yeah, he said, I can do that. Let me just lock up. They went to the cafe down the street, not the river's edge where this had all started, but a smaller place that Noah frequented. Jennifer asked thoughtful questions about the store's history, its struggles, its place in the neighborhood. She asked about his father, about Lily, about what it meant to fight for something even when the odds were impossible. Noah answered honestly, about the rent increase, the dwindling customer base, the choice between closing or trying something desperate, about believing in the value of physical bookstores even in an Amazon world, about teaching his daughter that some things were worth fighting for even when fighting seemed futile. And are you? Jennifer asked. Jennifer's. Fighting or preparing to close? Noah thought about Saturday morning, about Avery coming to look at his books, about Lily's book club launching on Tuesday, about the fragile new possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward he hadn't seen before. I'm fighting, he said, for as long as I can. The article ran online that evening and in print the next morning. It was fair, well-written, and heartbreaking in the way that stories about dying things always are. Jennifer had captured something essential about Walker's books, not just what it was, but what it meant, what it represented. By noon on Friday, Noah's phone was ringing off the hook. Customers he hadn't seen in months stopped by to buy books and offer support. The local news called asking for an interview. A bookstagrammer with 50,000 followers posted about the store, encouraging her audience to shop local. Someone set up a GoFundMe without asking permission, and it raised $3,000 in 6 hours. It was overwhelming and humbling and terrifying because Noah knew this might be a temporary spike, a brief surge of attention that would fade when the next story came along. But it was also undeniably, powerfully real. People cared. The neighborhood cared. And maybe that mattered more than he'd allowed himself to believe. Saturday morning arrived with unexpected sunshine, the kind that made Seattle feel like it had been forgiven for something. Noah opened the store an hour early to prepare for Avery's visit, though he wasn't sure what preparing actually meant. He'd printed out 5 years of financial statements, organized his tax returns, made a folder of every invoice and receipt he could find. His business's entire history, reduced to paper. Avery arrived at exactly 10, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing jeans and a casual jacket that made her look like a normal person instead of a CEO. She handed Noah his coffee, black, no sugar, remembered from their first meeting, and looked around the store with undisguised curiosity. It's smaller than I pictured, she said. Is that bad? It's perfect. It feels like a secret, like a place you'd stumble into and never want to leave. She walked slowly through the aisles, running her fingers along spines, pausing to read handwritten shelf talkers that Noah had created to recommend specific books. Who wrote these? I did. And my dad. Some of them. The older cards are his handwriting. Avery stopped at a card that read, "If you've ever loved someone who didn't love you back, this book will break your heart," and then carefully put it back together. R.W., your dad recommended heartbreak books? He recommended everything. He believed every book had its perfect reader, and his job was to make the introduction. Did it work? Depends on your definition of work. He never got rich, but he changed a lot of lives, including mine. They spent the next 2 hours going through Noah's finances in excruciating detail. Avery asked questions that were both kind and relentless, digging into every number, every assumption, every decision Noah had made or failed to make. She didn't judge, but she didn't let him hide either. When they finished, she sat back in her chair and was quiet for a long moment. "Okay," she said finally. "Here's what I see. The store isn't failing because you're bad at running it. You're actually quite good at running it. Your inventory turnover is solid, your customer retention is excellent, and your community engagement is exactly what a store like this should be doing. You're failing because the economic model for small retail is fundamentally broken, and you're trying to win a rigged game. That's not exactly encouraging." "I'm not done." Avery leaned forward. "But there are ways to unrig it, or at least to give yourself fighting odds. You need to diversify revenue, events, classes, maybe a small cafe component. You need to optimize your online presence for pickup and local delivery. You need to build partnerships with schools and libraries, and you need capital to do all of that. About $60,000 minimum." Noah laughed, hollow. I don't have $60,000. I know, that's why I'm offering to lend it to you. The room felt suddenly very quiet. Lend, Noah repeated carefully. Yes. Not invest, not donate, lend. Fixed interest rate, 5-year repayment term, structured so your monthly payments are manageable even if revenues stay flat. I'm not doing this to own a piece of your store, Noah. I'm doing it to help you keep your store. Avery pulled out a folder from her bag. I had my attorney draft preliminary terms. Read them. Show them to a lawyer if you have one. Make sure you understand exactly what you'd be agreeing to. Noah took the folder with hands that weren't quite steady. Why are you doing this? I told you why. My grandmother's bakery. My guilt about gentrification. My desire to matter in a way that isn't just profit margins. That's not the whole reason. Avery met his eyes and her expression was complicated, vulnerable, and guarded at once. No, she admitted. It's not. The whole reason is that when I talk to you, I remember what it feels like to care about something real. My whole life is abstractions, Noah. Quarterly earnings, market projections, investor presentations, none of it means anything. But this, she gestured at the store around them. This means something. And I want to be part of something that means something, even if it's just as the person who wrote a check. Before Noah could respond, the bell above the door chimed. They both turned, and there, standing in the doorway with her purple backpack and her gap-toothed grin, was Lily. Dad, she said, her eyes moving from Noah to Avery with open curiosity. Mrs. Chen said you were having a business meeting, and I should give you privacy, but I really need to show you something important, and... She stopped, tilted her head. Who are you? Avery stood, extending her hand with a smile. I'm Avery. I'm a friend of your dad's. You must be Lily. Lily shook her hand solemnly, then looked at Noah. You have friends I don't know about? Apparently I do. And you're having secret business meetings on Saturday mornings? They're not secret, they're just private. Lily considered this, then turned her full attention to Avery. Are you helping my dad save the store? Avery glanced at Noah, clearly unsure how much to say. Noah gave a slight nod. I'm trying to, Avery said. Your dad's store is really special. I think it deserves to stick around. Me too. Lily's expression turned serious. Are you nice? Because my dad doesn't need people in his life who aren't nice. He's had enough of that. Lily, Noah started, mortified. But Avery laughed, warm and genuine. That's a fair question. I'd like to think I'm nice, but you should probably judge for yourself. What do you think makes someone nice? Lily thought about this carefully. Nice people listen, and they don't make promises they can't keep, and they care about things that aren't just about them. Those are good criteria. Avery knelt down so she was at Lily's eye level. I can promise to try to meet them. Is that fair? Lily studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, you can stay. Thank you. That's very generous. Do you like books? I do, though I don't read as much as I should. What's your favorite? Probably The Little Prince. My grandmother used to read it to me when I was about your age. Lily's entire face lit up. I love that book. The part with the fox and taming and being responsible for what you've tamed makes me cry every single time. And just like that, Noah watched his daughter and this woman who'd accidentally sat on him 2 weeks ago fall into an animated conversation about roses and baobabs and the importance of asking the right questions. Avery was completely focused on Lily, listening with the same intensity she'd brought to analyzing financial statements, asking follow-up questions, laughing at Lily's jokes. It was the most natural thing in the world. It was terrifying, because Noah could feel something shifting in his chest, something he'd sworn he wouldn't let happen again, something that looked dangerously like hope and trust, and the kind of connection that had once destroyed him when it was taken away. He looked at the folder in his hands, at the promise of help, of possibility, of a future that might actually exist. And he thought about his daughter asking Avery if she was nice, and about Avery kneeling on the floor of his bookstore talking about foxes and taming. And he thought maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something he hadn't seen coming. Something unexpected. Something real. The conversation between Lily and Avery continued for another 15 minutes, ranging from books to school to the tadpoles that still hadn't turned into frogs, and Noah found himself simply watching. There was something mesmerizing about seeing his carefully guarded daughter open up so completely to someone she'd just met. Lily had her mother's wariness around strangers, that protective shell that took time to crack. But with Avery, the shell seemed unnecessary. "I should probably let you two finish your meeting," Lily said finally, glancing at Noah. "Mrs. Chen's waiting outside. We're going to the library to return books." "But Avery?" She turned back with sudden seriousness. "You should come to my book club on Tuesday. It's the first meeting. We're reading Where the Wild Things Are and talking about what it means to be wild but also come home." Avery looked genuinely touched. "I would love that. If your dad says it's okay." "Dad always says everything is okay," Lily said matter-of-factly. "He's very permissive. That's what Mrs. Morrison says. It means he lets me do things." "I'm permissive because you have good judgment," Noah corrected. "There's a difference. See? Permissive." Lily shouldered her backpack. "Tuesday at 3:30, Avery. Don't be late. I'm very strict about punctuality." After she left, the bookstore felt oddly quiet. Avery stood slowly, brushing off her jeans, and when she looked at Noah, her expression was soft in a way he hadn't seen before. "She's extraordinary," Avery said simply. "She is, but you didn't have to agree to come to her book club. She'll hold you to it, you know. She has an extremely detailed memory for promises." "Good. I want to come." Avery walked back to the table where they'd spread out the financial documents. "Can I ask you something personal?" Noah tensed slightly. "Sure." "Her mother. Is she—" "I don't mean to pry, but Lily mentioned you've had enough of people who aren't nice, and I just want to understand what I'm walking into here, if I'm walking into anything." Noah took a breath, considering how much to say. He'd gotten good at the abbreviated version, the one that satisfied curiosity without requiring him to relive the worst parts. "Her mother left 3 years ago," he said finally. "I came home from the store one day and found a note. She'd packed a bag, emptied half our savings account, and was gone. No warning, no explanation beyond, 'I can't do this anymore.' She signed the divorce papers from wherever she ended up, California, we think, and gave up all parental rights without a fight. Lily thinks she lives far away and can't visit. She doesn't know her mother chose to leave and chose to stay gone." Avery's face had gone very still. "Noah, I'm so sorry. It's been 3 years. We've adapted. Lily's okay, mostly. Better than okay, actually. She's resilient in ways I'll never understand." He paused, meeting Avery's eyes. "But it taught me to be careful. About who I let close, about who I let into her life, because she gets attached easily, and she's already lost one parent. I can't let her lose anyone else." "I understand." Avery's voice was quiet but steady. "And I want you to know that I take that seriously. Whatever this is, business relationship, friendship, whatever, I'm not going anywhere unless you ask me to. That's a promise I can keep." Something in Noah's chest loosened slightly. "Thank you." "So," Avery tapped the folder with the loan terms. "Read these. Think about it. Talk to a lawyer if you want, though I promise they're fair. Take your time. This offer isn't going anywhere." "How much time?" "As much as you need, though if you want my advice." She smiled slightly. "Don't overthink it. Sometimes the scariest decisions are the right ones." After Avery left, Noah sat alone in the quiet store and read through the loan documents. She was right. The terms were more than fair. They were generous to the point of being suspicious, except Noah was starting to understand that Avery's motivations weren't purely financial. She wasn't trying to make money off him. She was trying to make meaning out of money she already had. The question was whether Noah could accept help without feeling like he was failing. He thought about his father, who'd never been too proud to ask for assistance when the store needed it, who'd taken small business loans and community grants, and help from neighbors who believed in what he was building. Pride was fine, his father used to say, but pride never shelved a book or paid an electric bill. Noah pulled out his phone and texted Avery before he could talk himself out of it. "I don't need time." The answer is yes. "When do we start?" The response came quickly. "Monday morning. Bring coffee and ideas. We have a bookstore to save." That night, after Lily was asleep, Noah did something he hadn't done in months. He allowed himself to imagine a future where the store survived, where Lily's book club became a regular fixture, where the revenue streams diversified, where customers returned not out of sympathy, but because Walker's books offered something Amazon couldn't replicate. He imagined a year from now, 2 years, 5. He imagined Lily at 13, at 16, still coming to the store after school, still believing in the magic of physical books. He imagined not being alone in the fight anymore. It was a dangerous thing to imagine, but for once Noah let himself feel the hope without immediately crushing it with realism. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Noah opened the store early, made a fresh pot of coffee in the tiny back room that served as his office, and waited. Avery arrived at 8 with a laptop bag and an energy that suggested she'd been awake for hours. "Okay," she said, spreading papers across the reading table. "I've been thinking all weekend. Here's what I propose. Phase 1. Immediate stabilization. We negotiate with your landlord, get that rent increase reduced or delayed. We optimize your online presence, new website, better social media, email newsletter to your customer base. We create a membership program, something that gives regulars a reason to commit financially. Phase 2. Revenue diversification. We add a small cafe component, nothing complicated, just coffee and pastries from a local bakery. We launch educational programming, writing workshops, book clubs for different age groups, author events. We partner with schools for bulk orders and literacy programs. Phase 3. Community investment. We make this store essential to the neighborhood again, not just nice to have, but actually necessary. Noah listened, feeling simultaneously energized and overwhelmed. That's a lot of phases. It's a lot of work, Avery agreed. But it's doable. I can help with the planning and initial setup, but you'll need to hire someone part-time to help execute. You can't do this alone anymore, Noah. That's part of the problem. You've been treating this like a one-man operation when it needs to be bigger than that. I can't afford to hire anyone. The loan covers staffing costs for the first year. After that, if the revenue projections hold, you'll be able to afford it yourself. Avery pulled out a spreadsheet. I ran the numbers 3 different ways. Conservative estimate, moderate estimate, optimistic estimate. Even in the conservative scenario, you're profitable within 18 months. Noah studied the spreadsheet, looking for the catch. There had to be a catch. People didn't just offer this kind of help without wanting something in return. What do you get out of this? He asked. And don't say it's just about your grandmother's bakery or fighting gentrification. There's something else, I can tell. Avery was quiet for a moment, her fingers drumming on the table. Then she sighed and met his eyes. You want the honest answer? Always. I'm lonely, she said simply. I run a company with 300 employees and I'm the loneliest person I know. I have colleagues, but not friends. I have networking contacts, but not real connections. I go to events and smile and shake hands and talk about market share, and then I go home to an empty apartment and eat takeout in front of my laptop and wonder what the point of any of it is. She paused, her voice dropping. And then I sat on you in a coffee shop and you laughed. You actually laughed, like it was funny instead of a lawsuit waiting to happen. And when we talked, you were real, not performing, not networking, just real. And I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a conversation that felt like that. Noah felt something shift in his chest, a recognition that went bone deep. So this is about connection. This is about trying to build something real in a life that feels increasingly artificial, Avery said. The bookstore is real. Your daughter is real. You're real. And I want to be part of that, even if it's just as the person who helped save the store. Even if it's just showing up to an 8-year-old's book club on Tuesday afternoons. I want to matter to something that isn't measured in quarterly earnings. The vulnerability in her voice was painful to hear. Noah understood it too well, that desperate need to mean something beyond what you could produce or earn or achieve. He'd felt it every time a customer told him the store had changed their life. Every time Lily dragged a friend over to show them her favorite corner, every time he shelved a book and knew exactly which reader would fall in love with it. Okay, he said, then let's do this. All of it. The phases, the plan, the whole thing. But on one condition. What's that? You have to actually be here. Not just financially, not just strategically. You have to show up. To the book club, to the events we plan, to the hard days when nothing works and we're both questioning our sanity. If we're building something real, it requires real presence. Can you do that? Avery smiled, and it transformed her face. Yeah, I can do that. They spent the next 4 hours working through logistics with an intensity that surprised Noah. Avery had clearly done her homework. She knew retail trends, community business models, and creative financing strategies that Noah had never even heard of. But she also listened when he talked about the neighborhood, the customers, the intangible things that made Walker's Books special. They were a strange team, the CEO and the struggling bookstore owner, but somehow it worked. By noon, they had a plan. By 1, they drafted an email to the landlord. By 2, Avery had called in a favor from a designer friend who agreed to revamp the store's website for a fraction of the normal cost. You're terrifyingly efficient, Noah observed, watching her fire off another email. I'm terrifyingly bored with my actual job, Avery countered. This is the most interested I've been in anything in months, years maybe. That's sad. It really is. She closed her laptop. I should go. I have a board meeting at 4 and I need to pretend I've been focused on Lintech instead of bookstore rescue operations. Thank you, Noah said, for all of this. I know I keep saying that, but I mean it. Stop thanking me. We're partners now. Partners don't thank each other. They just show up and do the work. Avery stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. I'll see you Tuesday, 3:30, book club. I'm reading Where the Wild Things Are tonight to prepare. After she left, Noah stood in the quiet store and let himself feel the full weight of what had just happened. He'd accepted help. He'd let someone in. He'd agreed to trust another person with something precious and fragile. It was absolutely terrifying. It was also, possibly, the smartest thing he'd done in 3 years. Tuesday afternoon arrived faster than Noah expected. The first meeting of Lily's book club was scheduled for 3:30, and by 3:15 the store was already chaos. 6 children, Lily had recruited one more since her initial pitch, were scattered around the reading corner in various states of excitement and sugar-fueled energy. Their parents lingered near the door, clearly unsure whether to stay or go. You can browse, Noah told them, or grab coffee next door and come back in an hour. The kids will be fine. Most of them chose to browse, which Noah had predicted. Captive audience, just like Lily had planned. At 3:28, Avery walked in carrying a bag from a local bakery. I brought cookies, she announced. I hope that's okay. I checked with 3 different parenting blogs and they all said cookies are acceptable book club snacks as long as they're nut-free. Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. You came! I promised I would. I take promises seriously. Avery set the cookies on the table and looked around at the assembled children. So, we're talking about where the wild things are, right? Who wants to start? What followed was the most chaotic, wonderful, completely unstructured literary discussion Noah had ever witnessed. The children talked over each other, went off on tangents, debated whether Max was brave or just reckless, argued about whether the wild things were real or imaginary, and somehow circled back to profound observations about loneliness and belonging, and the importance of someone waiting with dinner still hot. Avery sat on the floor with them, contributing occasional questions, but mostly just listening. She took them seriously in a way that adults often didn't with children, treating their observations as genuinely valuable rather than cute. When a shy boy named Marcus, not teenage Marcus the Murakami collector, but a different younger Marcus, quietly mentioned that he sometimes felt wild inside and didn't know how to come home, Avery didn't dismiss it or redirect. She just nodded and said, "Me too. I think everyone feels that way sometimes." The boy looked at her like she'd given him something precious. When the hour was up and parents started collecting their children, Lily approached Noah with her business face on. "Dad, we need to discuss expansion." "Expansion?" 3 more kids want to join next week. That's 9 total. I think we need to cap it at 10 for optimal discussion quality. She pulled out a waiting list she'd apparently already created. Mrs. Chen says this is called demand forecasting. Noah looked over at Mrs. Chen, who'd stayed to observe. She shrugged, smiling. The girl's a natural entrepreneur. Don't fight it. After everyone left except Avery, who was helping clean up cookie crumbs, Lily made a production of leaving them alone. I need to go do homework, she announced, even though it was barely 4:30 and homework had never been voluntarily started this early in her life. You two should probably talk about grown-up things. I'll be upstairs. They lived above the store, a small two-bedroom apartment that Noah's father had used as storage until Noah and his ex-wife had needed somewhere cheap to live. After the divorce, it had become permanent. Convenient for the store, less convenient for having any separation between work and home life. She's subtle, Avery observed after Lily disappeared up the back stairs. She's about as subtle as a brick. I don't know where she gets it. Noah finished wiping down the table. Thank you for coming. You didn't have to, but it meant a lot to her. It meant a lot to me too. Avery leaned against the bookshelf, looking tired but genuinely happy. I haven't had that much fun I can't even remember. Listening to children argue about whether wild rumpuses are real forms of governance was the highlight of my month. Your month needs better highlights. It really does. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever get scared about raising her alone, about making the wrong choices, about screwing her up somehow? Noah laughed, short and sharp. Every single day, multiple times a day. I lie awake at night cataloging all the ways I'm probably failing her, but then I watch her do something like organize a book club or show genuine kindness to a shy kid, and I think maybe I'm doing okay. Maybe we're doing okay together. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. She's the only reason I'm still fighting for any of this. Noah gestured at the store around them. If it was just me, I probably would have given up months ago. But she believes in this place. She believes in me. I can't let her down. You won't, Avery said with quiet certainty. I've known you for 2 weeks, and even I can see that you'd burn the world down before you'd let her down. Something in her voice made Noah look at her more carefully. Are you okay? I don't know, Avery admitted. I had a board meeting today and they loved our quarterly numbers, but kept pushing for more. More growth, more expansion, more acquisition targets. And all I could think was, for what? We're already successful. We're already profitable. At what point is enough actually enough? She rubbed her eyes tiredly. And then I came here and watched kids get excited about a book, and it felt like the sanest thing I'd done all week. You could walk away, Noah said. From Lintech, I mean. You're the CEO. You could sell or step down or restructure your role. And do what instead? I don't know. What do you want to do? Avery looked at him like he'd asked her to solve an impossible equation. I have no idea. I've been so focused on what I should do, what's expected, what makes strategic sense, that I forgot to figure out what I actually want. That sounds exhausting. It is. She pushed off from the bookshelf. I should go. But Noah, thank you for this, for letting me be part of something that makes sense. After she left, Noah found Lily sitting on the stairs where she'd obviously been eavesdropping. You like her, Lily said. Not a question. She's a friend. Dad, I'm 8, not stupid. You look at her the way Prince Charming looks at Cinderella in the movie. Noah felt heat creep up his neck. It's complicated. Why is it complicated? Because she's helping save the store. Because she has her own life and her own problems. Because... He stopped, not sure how to explain adult complications to an 8-year-old. Because I need to be careful about who I let into our life. Lily came down the stairs and hugged him. I like her too. She's nice, and she listens, and she brought good cookies. She pulled back to look at him seriously. You're allowed to like people, Dad. Mom left, but that doesn't mean everyone will. The wisdom of children, Noah thought. Devastating and true. When did you get so smart? He asked. I've always been smart. You're just finally noticing. Over the next 2 weeks, a pattern emerged. Avery came to the store 3 or 4 times a week, ostensibly to work on the business plan, but increasingly just to be there. She'd show up in the late afternoon, sometimes with her laptop, sometimes empty-handed, and she'd help with whatever needed doing. Shelving books, updating inventory, helping customers find what they needed. She was surprisingly good at it, with an intuition for matching readers to books that Noah wouldn't have expected from someone whose job was software and data. The Tuesday book clubs became a fixed point in both their schedules. Lily expanded to 2 groups, the original for younger readers, a new one for older kids who wanted to discuss more complex books. Avery attended both when she could, and Noah watched his daughter and this woman develop a relationship that had nothing to do with him. They had inside jokes. They had their own text thread, apparently, discussing books and life. Lily asked Avery's opinion on things, and Avery asked Lily's opinion right back, treating her as a person whose thoughts mattered. It was wonderful. It was terrifying. Because Noah could feel himself falling, and he had no idea how to stop it. Falling for the way Avery laughed with Lily, falling for her fierce intelligence and her unexpected vulnerability, falling for the moments when she'd catch his eye across the store and smile like they were sharing a secret, falling for her presence, her realness, her determination to matter in a way that transcended profit margins and quarterly reports. He tried to maintain professional boundaries. This was a business relationship, a friendship at most. She was helping save his store, not auditioning for a role in his life. He couldn't afford to confuse gratitude with something deeper, except it was already something deeper, and pretending otherwise was becoming impossible. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after that first book club meeting. The store had been unusually busy all day. The article in the Seattle Observer had brought a surge of customers that hadn't quite faded yet, and Noah was exhausted but satisfied. Lily was at a sleepover for the first time in months, which meant Noah had a rare evening alone. He was closing up when Avery appeared at the door. "I know it's late," she said, "but I was in the neighborhood and I saw your light on and I thought, I don't actually know what I thought. I just didn't want to go home yet." Noah unlocked the door and let her in. "Bad day?" "Long day, frustrating day, the kind where I remember why I hate corporate politics." She dropped onto one of the reading chairs like all her strings had been cut. "Sorry, I'm being weird. I should go." "You're not being weird. Or if you are, it's allowed." Noah sat across from her. "What happened?" "The board wants me to acquire a competitor. Hostile takeover, essentially. It makes perfect strategic sense, would increase our market share significantly, and I absolutely hate everything about it." Avery closed her eyes. "The company we'd be acquiring is run by a woman I respect. She built something from nothing, and now we're going to swoop in and absorb it because we can. Because that's what companies do. And I'm expected to lead the charge like it's a victory instead of a destruction. So don't do it." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "You're the CEO. Say no." "If I say no, the board will push back. If I push back too hard, they'll replace me. I'm good at my job, Noah, but I'm not irreplaceable. Nobody is." She opened her eyes, and the exhaustion in them was profound. "And the worst part is, I'm not even sure I'd care if they did replace me. I'm so tired of this, of being good at something I don't believe in anymore." Noah understood that feeling intimately. Then maybe it's time to do something else. "Like what?" "I don't know. What makes you happy?" Avery looked around the store, at the shelves of books, at the reading corner with its string lights and bean bags, at the window displays Noah changed every week. "This," she said quietly, "being here, helping you build something that matters, watching kids get excited about stories, having conversations that aren't about market penetration or competitive advantage, feeling like what I do in a day actually means something to someone." Noah's heart was beating too fast. "Avery, I know it's not realistic. I know I can't just quit my job and work in a bookstore. I have responsibilities, financial obligations, employees depending on me. But God, Noah, sometimes I just want to be a person instead of a position. Sometimes I just want to matter in a small, real way instead of a large, abstract one." She looked at him, and the vulnerability in her expression cracked something open in Noah's chest. "You do matter," he said. "Here, to Lily, to me. Do I, or am I just useful? The person with money who can solve your problems?" "You're not just useful." Noah leaned forward, closing some of the distance between them. Avery, you're the first person in 3 years who's made me feel like I'm not alone in this. Who's seen what I'm trying to build and believed it was worth saving. Who's shown up consistently, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. That matters. You matter. Noah, and Lily adores you, not because you bring cookies or help with the store, but because you see her, You listen to her. You treat her like a person whose opinions are worth hearing. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Avery's eyes were bright. I'm falling for you, she whispered. Both of you. This place, this life, everything about it. And it terrifies me because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be part of something real when my whole life has been about performance and strategy and maintaining control. Noah's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know what I'm doing. I'm saying I'm probably going to mess this up. I'm saying I have no idea how to balance my responsibilities with what I actually want. But I'm also saying that when I'm here with you, I feel more like myself than I do anywhere else in my life. She paused, then added quietly, and that scares the hell out of me. Noah moved to the chair beside hers, close enough that their knees were almost touching. I'm scared too, he admitted. The last person I trusted with my heart destroyed me, left me and Lily without explanation, without apology, without looking back. I swore I wouldn't let anyone that close again. But Avery, you're already close, and I don't know what to do with that except tell you the truth, which is that I'm falling for you too. Have been since you sat on me in that cafe and then surprised me by being real. This is a terrible idea, Avery said, but she was smiling. Probably the worst. I don't know how to do this. A relationship, I mean. I'm terrible at relationships. I work too much. I'm emotionally unavailable. I have commitment issues that would require years of therapy to unpack. I'm a broke single father with a failing business and enough emotional baggage to fill a warehouse. I'm not exactly a catch either. So we're both disasters. Complete disasters, Noah agreed. Avery reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cold and she was trembling slightly. What do we do? I don't know. Try? See what happens? Take it slow and be honest and not run away when it gets hard? That sounds impossible. Everything worthwhile is impossible until it isn't. They sat like that for a long moment, hands clasped, both of them terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Then Avery laughed, shaky but genuine. We're really doing this, aren't we? I think we are. Noah squeezed her hand. But we need rules, boundaries. Lily comes first, always. And we're honest with each other even when it's uncomfortable. And we don't make promises we can't keep. I can agree to that. Avery met his eyes. Noah Walker, would you like to go on a date with me? A real one, not a business meeting disguised as lunch. Yes, but I need to find a babysitter and pick a place I can actually afford, and I'll find the babysitter. You pick the place. It doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be somewhere we can talk. Okay, Friday night? Friday night. Avery stood, pulling him up with her. For a moment they just looked at each other, and Noah could feel the weight of what they were agreeing to. The risk, the possibility, the terrifying hope that maybe this time would be different. Then Avery leaned in and kissed him, soft and brief and perfect. Friday, she said again, and then she was gone, leaving Noah standing alone in his bookstore with his heart beating too fast and a smile he couldn't quite suppress. This was probably a mistake. This was probably going to end badly. This was probably going to hurt. But for the first time in 3 years, Noah Walker was willing to risk it. Noah spent the next morning in a state of barely controlled panic. He had a date, an actual date, with a woman he was falling for who also happened to be the person keeping his business afloat. The potential for disaster was astronomical. He was reorganizing the poetry section for the 3rd time when his phone buzzed. Avery, still freaking out? Noah, how did you know? Avery, because I'm freaking out too. Found myself in a board meeting this morning, mentally planning what to wear Friday instead of listening to Q4 projections. Noah, what are you going to wear? Avery, something that says I'm a normal person on a date instead of I'm a CEO who forgot how to be human. You? Noah, something without coffee stains. That's literally my only criterion. Avery, the bar is low. I like it. Noah smiled at his phone like a teenager, then looked up to find Marcus, teenage Marcus, the Murakami collector, watching him with undisguised amusement. You're smiling at your phone again, Marcus observed. Mrs. Henderson said you've been doing that a lot lately. She thinks you have a girlfriend. Mrs. Henderson needs to mind her own business. So you do have a girlfriend? I have a date. There's a difference. Marcus grinned. Good for you, man. You deserve it. This place has been less depressing lately. More people coming in, more energy. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. After Marcus left with a pristine first edition of Norwegian Wood that he'd been saving for, Noah allowed himself a moment of cautious optimism. The store was doing better. Not great, not saved yet, but better. The loan from Avery had allowed him to negotiate a temporary rent reduction with the landlord. 6 months at the old rate while he implemented changes. The new website was getting traffic. The book clubs were bringing in families who stayed to browse. He'd hired a part-time employee, a college student named Sarah, who was majoring in English and knew her way around social media. Things were looking up, which meant Noah knew from experience that something was about to go catastrophically wrong. The catastrophe arrived Wednesday afternoon in the form of his ex-wife's mother. Noah was helping a customer find a specific translation of the Odyssey when the bell chimed and Patricia Brennan walked in like she owned the place. She'd always had that quality, that absolute certainty that the world would rearrange itself to accommodate her preferences. It was where her daughter had learned it. Noah's stomach dropped. "Patricia," he managed, "this is unexpected." "I'm sure it is." She looked around the store with the expression of someone evaluating a condemned building. "We need to talk. Is there somewhere private?" Noah excused himself from the customer and led Patricia to the back office, a cramped space barely large enough for a desk and 2 chairs. She sat without being invited, crossed her legs, and got straight to the point. "I want to see Lily." Noah's blood went cold. "No. She's my granddaughter, Noah. I have rights. You have no rights. Your daughter gave up all parental rights 3 years ago, and you supported that decision. You told me it was for the best, that Lily would be better off without a mother who didn't want her. Your words." Patricia's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt, but it passed quickly. "I was wrong. Jennifer was going through a difficult time, and I thought space would help. But it's been 3 years. She's stable now. She wants to be part of Lily's life again." Noah felt like the floor was tilting. Jennifer wants custody? Not custody, visitation. A chance to rebuild the relationship she walked away from. She's remarried, Noah. Living in San Diego. She has a stable home, a good income. She can provide things for Lily that you can't. Like abandonment issues? Like the knowledge that her mother chose to leave and stayed gone for 3 years? Like the therapy bills she'll need when she realizes the person who was supposed to love her unconditionally gave her up without a fight? Noah's voice was rising, and he forced it back down. The answer is no. Jennifer made her choice. She doesn't get to unmake it now that it's convenient. You can't keep a child from her mother. I'm not keeping her from anyone. Jennifer left. Jennifer signed papers giving up her rights. She doesn't get to waltz back in and disrupt Lily's life because she suddenly feels maternal. Noah stood. And you can tell your daughter that if she wants to see Lily, she can hire a lawyer and we'll let the courts decide. But I promise you, Patricia, I will fight this with everything I have. Lily is happy, she's stable, she's thriving. I won't let anyone take that away from her. Patricia stood as well, and for a moment Noah saw real emotion in her eyes. Sadness, maybe. Regret. She asks about her mother, Noah. Jennifer says you told her that Lily asks questions. Noah's breath caught. He'd never told Jennifer anything because Jennifer had never reached out, which meant, "You've been in contact with Lily?" he asked quietly. "Behind my back?" I sent her a birthday card. She wrote back. Sweet child, very articulate. She wanted to know if I could tell her about her mother, if I knew why she lived so far away. Patricia's voice softened. She deserves to know her family, Noah, all of her family. "Get out," Noah said. "Get out of my store right now, and if you contact my daughter again without my permission, I will file for a restraining order. Do you understand me?" Patricia gathered her purse with dignity that felt practiced. "You're making a mistake. Jennifer has changed. She's ready to be a mother now. She had 8 years to be a mother. She chose not to. That ship has sailed." After Patricia left, Noah locked the office door and allowed himself exactly 5 minutes to fall apart. His hands were shaking, his heart racing, his mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. Jennifer could sue for visitation. She might win. She had resources now, stability, a lawyer mother who would fight ruthlessly. And what did Noah have? A struggling bookstore, a small apartment, single-income household barely staying afloat. A judge might look at that and decide Lily would be better off with a mother who'd gotten her act together, regardless of the abandonment. His phone buzzed. A text from Avery. Avery. Babysitter secured for Friday. Mrs. Chen's niece. Highly recommended. Also, I found this restaurant that does small plates and apparently has the best wine list in Seattle, if you like wine. If not, we can go somewhere else. I'm overthinking this, aren't I? Noah stared at the message, at this woman who was worried about wine lists while his entire world was threatening to implode. He should cancel. He should tell her that this was too complicated, that he had too much going on, that getting involved with someone right now was the worst possible timing. Instead, he typed, "Wine is great. The restaurant sounds perfect. Can I call you later?" Something came up. The response was immediate. Of course. Everything okay? Not really, but it will be. He hoped that was true. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Noah called Avery and told her everything. About Patricia's visit, about Jennifer's sudden desire for visitation, about the birthday card and the letters, and the threat of legal action. Avery listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "What do you need?" she asked finally. "I don't know. A lawyer, probably. One who specializes in family law and doesn't cost a fortune I don't have." "I know someone. One of Lintech's board members is married to a family law attorney. I'll reach out, see if they can at least give you a consultation." She paused. "Noah, I'm so sorry. This is a lot." "Yeah." Noah rubbed his eyes. "And it's terrible timing. I just got the store stabilized. I just started feeling like maybe things were looking up, and now this." "Do you want to cancel Friday?" "No," Noah said immediately. Then, more carefully, "Do you?" "Not even a little bit. But I'll understand if you need to focus on this instead." Noah thought about it, about the appeal of hiding in his apartment and catastrophizing until his brain wore itself out. Then he thought about Avery's laugh, about the way she looked at him like he was more than just a struggling single father, about the possibility of one evening where he got to be just Noah instead of Noah, who's barely holding it together. "I need Friday," he said. "I need a few hours where I'm not thinking about custody battles or legal fees or how to tell my daughter that her mother wants back into her life. I need to just be a person on a date." "Then that's what we'll do." He could hear the smile in Avery's voice. "A few hours where we're just two people who like each other, having dinner and terrible wine." "You said it was the best wine list in Seattle." "I lied. I have no idea if the wine is good. I just liked that the restaurant looked quiet, and the reviews said the food was excellent, and nobody would care if we stayed for 3 hours talking." 3 hours sounds perfect. They talked for another hour about nothing important. Books they'd read, childhood memories, the absurdity of Seattle weather. It was easy and comfortable and exactly what Noah needed. When they finally hung up, he felt marginally more human. Friday arrived with agonizing slowness. Noah spent the day oscillating between anticipation and terror, reorganizing the same shelf 4 times until Sarah finally told him he was being weird and should maybe take a walk. "You're making the customers nervous," she said. "Mrs. Henderson asked if you were having a breakdown. I told her you just had a date." "You told her what?" "She was worried, and honestly, it's kind of obvious. You've checked your reflection in the window 6 times, and it's only noon." Noah forced himself to stop fidgeting. "Is it that bad?" "It's adorable. Also slightly concerning. When was the last time you went on a date?" 3 years ago, with my wife, who then left me." Sarah winced. "Okay, yeah, that tracks. You're doing great, boss. Very normal levels of anxiety for someone who hasn't dated since the Obama administration." "Obama was still president 3 years ago." "Barely. My point stands." At 6 o'clock, Noah went upstairs to change. He'd asked Lily's opinion on his outfit earlier. She'd voted for the blue shirt because it made his eyes look nice, which was apparently something she'd learned from a YouTube video about fashion. And now he second-guessed everything. The shirt was too formal, too casual. The pants were wrong. His shoes looked old. "Dad, you look fine," Lily called from her bedroom, where she was supposedly doing homework but was definitely playing on her tablet. "Avery's not going to care what you're wearing. She likes you for your personality." "How do you know?" "Because she told me." I asked her if she thought you were handsome, and she said you were okay looking, but what she really liked was that you were kind and listened and made her laugh. So basically, your face doesn't matter. That's both reassuring and slightly insulting. You asked. Lily appeared in his doorway. Are you nervous? Terrified. Why? It's just Avery. Exactly. It's Avery who matters, which makes it scary. Lily considered this. Are you going to kiss her? Noah felt heat creep up his neck. We're not, it's a first date. You already kissed her, though. I heard you talking to Mrs. Chen about it. You eavesdropped too much. You talk too loud. Lily came over and hugged him. I like her, Dad. I think she likes us too. It's okay to be happy. Noah hugged his daughter back, overwhelmed by her wisdom and her generosity and her complete willingness to let another person into their carefully constructed two-person world. When did you get so smart? He asked for what felt like the 100th time. I've always been smart. You're just slow at noticing. Mrs. Uz, Chen's niece, a responsible-looking college student named Emma, arrived at 6:30 with a bag of activities and strict instructions from both Mrs. Chen and Lily about bedtime routines. Avery texted that she was on her way. Noah checked his reflection one more time, decided he looked acceptable, and headed downstairs to wait. She arrived at 6:45 wearing dark jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair down for once instead of pulled back. She looked nervous and beautiful, and so different from the polished CEO who'd walked into his life a month ago that Noah's breath caught. Hi, she said. Hi. They stared at each other for a moment, and then both laughed at the absurdity of their nerves. This is weird, right? Avery said. We've spent hours together over the past month, and suddenly it's weird. It's very weird. Do you want to skip dinner and just walk around the neighborhood talking like normal people? Yes, absolutely yes. They ended up at a small park along the waterfront, sitting on a bench and watching the fairy lights cross the dark water. They'd grabbed takeout from a Thai place, not Sala Thai, but a different one, closer, and were eating directly from the containers like teenagers. I'm sorry about the fancy restaurant, Avery said. I was trying too hard. I'm sorry I almost had a panic attack about my shirt. Lily gave me a whole speech about how you like me for my personality, not my face. Your face is fine. Better than fine, actually. Avery bumped his shoulder with hers. But she's right. Your face isn't why I'm here. What is why you're here? She was quiet for a moment, watching the water. You make me feel like myself. The real version, not the performance version. When I'm with you and Lily, I don't have to be the CEO or the daughter or the successful immigrant story. I just get to be Avery. And I'd forgotten what that felt like. Noah set down his food and took her hand. I get that. With you, I'm not just the struggling single dad or the guy whose wife left him. I'm just Noah. It's terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. Have you heard anything more about your ex-wife? Noah had told her about the follow-up email from Patricia's lawyer, the formal request for mediation, the looming threat of court proceedings. My lawyer, your friend's husband, who's amazing by the way, thinks we have a strong case. 3 years of voluntary absence, signed termination of rights, documented abandonment. He says it's unlikely a judge would grant visitation without significant evidence of changed circumstances and commitment to rebuilding the relationship. But you're still worried. I'm terrified. Because what if they do grant it? What if I have to tell Lily that her mother wants to see her after 3 years of silence? How do I explain that without breaking her heart all over again? Noah's voice cracked slightly. She's been asking questions lately, about her mom, about why she left. I've been dodging them because I don't know how to tell her the truth without destroying her. Avery squeezed his hand. Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for. And Lily has you. That's the most important thing. She has you too, Noah said quietly. She talks about you constantly. Avery said this, Avery thinks that. You've become a fixture in her life, which is wonderful, but also, Avery, if this doesn't work out between us, it's not just me who gets hurt. It's her too. And I can't put her through another loss. Then we don't let it not work out. It's not that simple. Why not? Avery turned to face him fully. Noah, I know I come with complications. I have a demanding job and emotional unavailability issues and a tendency to run when things get hard. But I also know that what we have is real, and I'm tired of running. I'm tired of protecting myself at the expense of actually living. So if you're asking me to commit to trying, to showing up even when it's scary, to being honest even when it's hard, I'm in completely. Noah looked at her, at the vulnerability and determination in her expression, and felt something shift in his chest, something that felt like trust or hope, or maybe just the willingness to believe that this time could be different. I'm in too, he said, scared out of my mind, but in. They kissed then, longer than the brief kiss in the bookstore, and it felt like a promise, like the beginning of something that might actually last. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Avery came to the store most afternoons, helping with events and inventory and the gradual transformation that was taking place. The small cafe area opened in early November, just coffee and pastries from a local bakery, but it immediately became popular with students and remote workers who needed somewhere cozy to camp out. The book clubs expanded to 4 different age groups. Sarah proved to be a social media wizard, and the store's Instagram following tripled. The numbers were still tight, but they were moving in the right direction. Avery's life was changing too. She'd brought in a COO to handle day-to-day operations at Lintech, freeing herself from the relentless grind of meetings and crisis management. She still attended board meetings and made major strategic decisions, but she'd created space for the things that actually mattered to her. The bookstore, Lily, Noah. They were careful around Lily, not hiding the relationship but not forcing it either. They didn't do coupley things in front of her, didn't kiss or hold hands where she could see. But Lily wasn't stupid, and one evening she cornered them in the store after closing. "You know I know you're dating, right?" she said, hands on her hips in a perfect imitation of a stern adult. "I'm not a baby. You don't have to pretend." Noah and Avery exchanged glances. "We're not pretending," Noah said carefully. "We're just being respectful of your feelings. This is new for all of us." "My feelings are fine. Great, actually. Avery makes you happy, Dad. You smile more. You worry less. Well, you worry the same amount, but about different things." Lily looked at Avery. "And you're nicer now. Mrs. Chen says you used to look scary, but now you look friendly." Avery laughed. "I look friendly now?" "Yeah, less like you want to fire someone and more like you want to be here. It's a good look on you." After Lily went upstairs to start her bedtime routine, Avery leaned against the counter and shook her head. "That kid is something else." "She really is. And she's right. You do seem different. Happier." "I am happier. I'm also more confused about what I'm doing with my life than I've been since college. But in a good way? Like I'm questioning the right things instead of just accepting them." Avery picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. "I've been thinking about something." "Yeah?" "The hostile takeover, the one my board was pushing. I said no." Noah straightened. "You did?" "Yesterday. Told them it didn't align with our values, that we could grow organically without destroying a competitor, that I wasn't going to lead an acquisition I didn't believe in." She smiled, but it was tight. They were not thrilled. There was talk of votes of no confidence, potential removal if I didn't realign my priorities with shareholder interests. "Avery, you could lose your job." "I know, and 6 months ago that would have terrified me. But now?" She looked around the bookstore at the warm lighting and the carefully arranged displays and the reading corner where children sat every Tuesday afternoon. "Now I think maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing. Maybe I've been holding on to something I outgrew a long time ago because I was too scared to let it go. What would you do instead?" "I don't know. That's the terrifying part. I've been the CEO of Lintech for 7 years. Before that, I was climbing the ladder at other companies. I've never not had a plan, never not known exactly where I was headed. But lately I've been thinking maybe that's the problem. Maybe I've been so focused on the destination that I forgot to figure out if I actually wanted to go there." Noah pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "You don't have to figure it all out tonight." "I know, but I want to. I want to know what comes next, what I'm building toward. I want it to matter. It already matters. You matter." They stood like that for a while, just holding each other in the quiet store, and Noah thought about how much had changed in 2 months. How his life had gone from quietly desperate to complicated and hopeful. How Avery had gone from stranger to partner to something deeper that he was still afraid to name. The mediation with Jennifer's lawyer happened in mid-November. Noah went alone, despite Avery's offer to come for moral support. This was something he needed to face himself. Jennifer looked different. Older, more polished, less like the woman who'd left him with a note, and more like a stranger wearing a familiar face. She sat across the conference table with her lawyer and her mother and spoke about change and growth and her desire to be part of Lily's life. Noah listened without interrupting, letting his own lawyer handle the questions and objections. When it was his turn to speak, he kept it simple. You left our daughter when she was 5 years old. You signed away your rights. You made a choice, Jennifer, and now you want to unmake it because it suits you. But this isn't about what suits you. It's about what's best for Lily. And I don't think having a mother who walks in and out of her life based on convenience is what's best. I'm not walking out, Jennifer said, and there were tears in her eyes that might have been real. I made a mistake. I was drowning, Noah. I couldn't breathe. I needed to get out or I was going to break completely. I did what I had to do to survive. And what about Lily? What about what she needed to survive? She had you. She's always had you. That's not enough, Noah said quietly. A child needs to know she's wanted by both parents. You took that from her, and I'm sorry you were drowning, Jennifer. I really am. But your survival cost our daughter her sense of security. She thinks she wasn't good enough to make you stay. Do you understand that? She thinks she failed you. The mediation ended with no agreement. Jennifer's lawyer said they'd pursue formal visitation rights through the courts. Noah's lawyer said they'd fight it. Patricia cried. Jennifer looked shell-shocked. Noah went home and held his daughter while she slept and promised her silently that he'd protect her from this, from all of it. When he told Avery about it later that night, she listened quietly and then said, "What do you need?" "I don't know. I just keep thinking about what happens if they win. If I have to send Lily to visit a mother she doesn't remember, if I have to watch her heart break all over again. Then we'll be there to help her through it. You, me, Mrs. Chen, everyone who loves her. She won't be alone, Noah. Neither of you will." The certainty in her voice helped. Not enough to erase the fear, but enough to make it bearable. December arrived with unusual snow for Seattle, transforming the city into something magical and temporary. The bookstore did record business in the weeks leading up to Christmas. Apparently nothing sold books like the threat of being snowed in with nothing to read. Lily's book clubs threw a holiday party that involved more cookies than literature, and Avery showed up with gifts for every child and somehow remembered all their names. On Christmas Eve, after the store closed early and Lily was asleep upstairs, Noah and Avery sat in the reading corner drinking wine and talking about the year that was ending. "I can't believe it's only been 3 months, Avery said. "It feels like longer, like you've been in my life forever. Good forever or bad forever? The best forever. The kind where I can't remember what it was like before and don't want to." She set down her wine glass. "I have something to tell you." Noah's stomach tightened. "Okay." "The board voted yesterday. I'm out as CEO effective February 1st. They're giving me a severance package and a seat on the board if I want it, but my time running Lintech is over." "Avery, I'm so sorry." "Don't be." She was smiling. "I'm not. I'm relieved, actually. Terrified and relieved and free in a way I haven't felt in years. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know it's going to be something that matters. Something real." Noah pulled her close. "You'll figure it out. And whatever you decide, I'm here. I know you are. That's what makes it possible to let go." She kissed him softly. "I love you, Noah Walker. I'm in love with you. And with your incredible daughter, and with this bookstore and this life and everything about it. I should probably be terrified of saying that out loud, but I'm not. I'm happy." Noah felt tears prick his eyes. "I love you too. Have for weeks now. I was just too scared to say it." "We're both scared, but we're doing it anyway. That's what matters." "What?" They spent Christmas together, the three of them, making pancakes for breakfast and reading books and building a puzzle that Lily insisted was supposed to be relaxing, but which mostly caused arguments about whether that piece definitely went there or maybe over here. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely ordinary. It was everything. On New Year's Eve, Noah's lawyer called with news. Jennifer's petition for visitation had been denied. The The judge had ruled that after 3 years of voluntary absence and signed termination of rights, there was insufficient evidence of changed circumstances or genuine commitment to justify disrupting the child's stable home environment. Jennifer could reapply in 2 years if she could demonstrate consistent, documented effort to rebuild the relationship. But for now, the matter was closed. Noah cried when he hung up the phone. Relief and gratitude, and the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting for so long they'd forgotten what peace felt like. Lily was safe. The store was stabilizing. Avery was his, and he was hers. And they were building something real. For the first time in 3 years, Noah Walker let himself believe in the future. Not as a someday possibility, but as something real and close and entirely within reach. The new year arrived with a clarity that felt almost disorienting. For the first time in years, Noah woke up on January 1st without the immediate weight of dread pressing against his chest. The store's December numbers had exceeded projections. Jennifer's petition was denied. Avery was lying next to him in bed, her hair spread across the pillow, still asleep in the early morning light. He allowed himself a moment to just watch her, to marvel at the impossibility of this. 6 months ago, he'd been alone and drowning. Now he was building something with someone who saw him, really saw him, and chose to stay anyway. Avery's eyes opened and she smiled sleepily. "You're staring. I'm appreciating." "There's a difference?" "A significant one." Noah kissed her forehead. "Happy New Year." "Happy New Year." She stretched, then checked her phone and made a face. "I have 17 emails from board members about transition planning. On New Year's Day. These people are relentless. You don't have to answer them today." "I know, but I should probably figure out what I'm actually doing with my life before they replace me completely and I become the cautionary tale about CEOs who lost their edge." She sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. "I've been thinking about something." "That sounds ominous." "Not ominous, just big." Avery turned to face him fully. "What if I invested in the bookstore? Not as a loan this time, as a real partnership. You run the day-to-day operations. I handle the business strategy and expansion planning. We could grow this into something bigger, more locations maybe, or a hybrid model with online components, a literary nonprofit arm, educational programming beyond the book clubs." Noah sat up slowly. "You want to go into business together? I want to build something that matters together. You have the vision and the community trust and the deep knowledge of how bookstores actually work. I have the business experience and the capital, and apparently a lot of free time starting February 1st. She was talking faster now, the way she did when she was excited about an idea. "I've been researching independent bookstore models, and there are ways to make this sustainable long-term. But it requires thinking bigger than one location, bigger than just survival. It requires actual strategic growth." "Avery, I know it's a lot. I know mixing business and personal is supposed to be a terrible idea. But we're already mixed, Noah. I'm already all in on this. The store, you, Lily, all of it. This would just make it official." Noah's mind was racing. The practical part of him saw the opportunity. Real capital, real business expertise, real possibility for growth instead of just scraping by. But the scared part, the part that had learned to protect himself, saw danger. What happened if the relationship fell apart? What happened if they discovered they couldn't work together? What happened if he lost not just Avery, but the store too? "Can I think about it?" he asked. Something flickered across Avery's expression. Disappointment, maybe, or hurt, but she nodded. "Of course. Take all the time you need. I just wanted to put it out there." They didn't talk about it for the rest of the day, but it sat between them like an invisible third presence. When Avery left that evening to deal with transition planning at Lintech, Noah found himself standing in the quiet bookstore, looking at everything they'd already built together. The cafe area that was bringing in steady revenue, the updated displays that Avery had designed, the event calendar she'd helped organize, the social media presence she'd funded. She was already his partner in everything but name. The question was whether making it official would strengthen what they had or destroy it. Lily found him there an hour later, sitting in the reading corner in the dark. "Dad? Why are you being weird in the dark?" Noah turned on a lamp. "I'm thinking." "About what?" "About whether I should go into business with Avery." Lily climbed into the beanbag next to him. "She asked you?" "This morning, full partnership. She'd invest real money and help grow the store into something bigger. That sounds good. Why do you look worried? Because what if it doesn't work? What if we fight about business decisions and it ruins our relationship? What if it's amazing and the store becomes successful and you're happy? Lily interrupted. That's also a what if, Dad. You always think about the bad ones, but forget about the good ones. Noah looked at his daughter, wondering when she'd become so wise. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You're just finally listening. She leaned against his shoulder. Avery's not like Mom. She doesn't run away when things get hard. She shows up every Tuesday for book club, every time you need help with the store, every time I want to talk about books or life or anything. She's here, Dad, and I think she's going to keep being here even if you're scared. You really like her, don't you? I love her, Lily said simply. She feels like family, like she belongs with us. Don't you think so? Noah's throat felt tight. Yeah, Bean. I think so too. That night after Lily was asleep, Noah called Avery. I have my answer, he said when she picked up. Yes, let's do this. Let's build something real together. He could hear the smile in her voice. Yeah? Yeah. I'm terrified and it's probably going to be complicated and we're definitely going to fight about inventory decisions, but yes, I want to do this with you. We're really doing this, Avery said softly, building something together. We've been building together for months. This just makes it official. They spent the next several weeks working out the details. Avery's lawyer drafted partnership agreements that were fair and clear. They established separate roles and decision-making processes. They built in conflict resolution procedures and exit strategies, not because they expected to need them, but because being prepared for worst-case scenarios was how you prevented them. Lintec announced Avery's departure in early February with a press release that praised her leadership and vision while carefully avoiding mention of the board conflict that had led to her removal. Avery spent her last 2 weeks transitioning her responsibilities and saying goodbye to employees she'd worked with for years. On her final day, she came to the bookstore instead of to the farewell party Lintec had organized. You're missing your own party, Noah said. I'd rather be here. Those people were my colleagues, not my friends. This, she gestured around the store. This is where I want to be. They'd planned a small celebration of their own. Lily had made a banner that said, Welcome to your new life, Avery, with elaborate decorations involving glitter and stickers. Mrs. Chen had brought homemade dumplings. Sarah had created a social media campaign announcing the new partnership. The regular customers, Mrs. Henderson, both Marcuses, Mr. Chen, the book club families, had all shown up to celebrate. It felt like a beginning. Over the next few months, they worked harder than Noah had ever worked in his life. Avery brought structure and strategy to areas where Noah had been flying by instinct. She negotiated better terms with distributors, established relationships with publishers for exclusive events, created a membership program that gave regular customers benefits while ensuring steady monthly revenue. Noah brought soul and community knowledge, the ability to read what customers needed before they knew themselves, the deep understanding of what made a bookstore essential rather than just convenient. Together, they were formidable. They fought, of course, about hiring decisions and inventory choices and how much to spend on renovations, about whether to expand the cafe or focus on events, about Avery's tendency to optimize everything and Noah's resistance to change that felt too corporate. But they'd built in those conflict resolution procedures for a reason, and they used them. They learned to disagree without making it personal, to compromise without resentment, to recognize when they needed to step back and let the other person lead. They learned to be partners in the truest sense. By May, Walker's Books had turned its first real profit in 4 years. By July, they were scouting locations for a second store. By September, they'd launched the nonprofit arm that brought free books and literacy programming to underserved communities. And through it all, Avery showed up. To every book club meeting, to every late night balancing books, to every moment of doubt and triumph in ordinary life. She learned Lily's friends' names and her favorite foods and how to French braid her hair. She learned Noah's coffee order and his anxiety patterns, and the way he needed silence when he was overwhelmed. She became not just part of their lives, but woven into the fabric of them. In October, nearly a year after they'd met, Noah took Lily to pick out a ring. They spent 2 hours in a small jewelry store while Lily debated the merits of different stones and settings with the seriousness of someone negotiating an international treaty. It needs to be special, she insisted, but not too fancy because Avery doesn't like fancy, and it needs to be strong because she works with her hands now. And it should have something blue because that's her favorite color, even though she pretends she doesn't have a favorite color. They settled on a simple platinum band with 3 small sapphires. Understated, elegant, strong, perfect. When are you going to ask her? Lily wanted to know as they left the store. I don't know. I want it to be meaningful, but not too planned. Natural. Dad, you're terrible at natural. You plan everything. Fair point. What do you think I should do? Lily considered this seriously. Ask her at the store. That's where you met, where you fell in love, where everything started. It should be there. She was right, of course. Noah spent 2 weeks trying to find the perfect moment, but every opportunity felt wrong. Too busy, too quiet, too ordinary, too staged. He was starting to think he'd carry the ring around forever when Lily took matters into her own hands. It was a Tuesday evening, after the book club had ended and the store was quiet. Lily announced she needed to show them both something important in the children's section. Can it wait? Noah asked. I need to finish inventory. No, it can't wait. It's an emergency. What kind of emergency? A book emergency, the most serious kind. Avery caught Noah's eye and shrugged, smiling. They followed Lily to the reading corner where she'd arranged all the beanbags in a circle and set up what appeared to be a presentation area. Sit, she commanded. They sat. Lily pulled out a handmade book from her backpack, the kind made from construction paper and staples and elaborate crayon illustrations. I made this for Avery, for us. It's called The Girl Who Found Her Way Home. She opened to the first page, which showed a girl with dark hair standing in a crowded city, looking lost. The next page showed the same girl sitting on someone. Noah recognized his own stick figure form, and both of them laughing. Page after page, Lily had captured their story in childish drawings and careful handwriting. The coffee shop meeting. The first time Avery came to the store. The book clubs. The Christmas they'd spent together. The ordinary moments that had added up to a family. The final page showed 3 figures holding hands. A man, a woman, and a girl between them. Above them, Lily had written in her best cursive, and they all lived happily ever after because they chose to stay. Noah's vision was blurring. When he looked at Avery, she was crying openly. Do you like it? Lily asked, suddenly anxious. I love it, Avery managed. Lily, this is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me. Good. Because I have a question. Lily's expression turned serious. You've been part of our family for almost a year, but it's not official yet. So I wanted to ask, she took a deep breath, would you maybe want to be official? Like, stay forever instead of just visiting? Avery looked at Noah, clearly unsure how to respond to an 8-year-old proposing forever. Noah pulled the ring box from his pocket, where it had been living for 2 weeks. I think what Lily's trying to say is that we'd like you to marry us, both of us, if you want to. Avery stared at the ring, then at Lily, then back at Noah. You're proposing. We're proposing, Lily corrected. It's a family decision. I had this whole speech planned, Noah said, about how you changed everything, how you made me believe in impossible things, how I can't imagine doing any of this without you. But Lily's book said it better than I ever could. You found your way home, Avery, to us, and we're asking if you want to stay. Forever, Lily added. Not just for now. Forever, forever. Avery was laughing and crying at the same time, which Noah had learned was what she did when she was overwhelmed by emotion. Yes, I want to stay forever. I want to marry you both and be a family and build this life we've been creating. Yes to all of it. Noah slipped the ring onto her finger while Lily cheered, and then they were all crying and hugging in the middle of the children's section, surrounded by books and beanbags and string lights. We're really doing this, Avery said, looking at the ring on her hand like she couldn't quite believe it was real. We really are, Noah confirmed. I'm going to be terrible at this, at being a wife and a stepmother and a normal person with a normal life. Good thing we're not normal people with a normal life, Lily said. We're bookstore people with a bookstore life. It's way better. They got married in April, exactly 18 months after Avery had accidentally sat on Noah in a riverside cafe. It was a small ceremony in the bookstore, surrounded by books and the people who'd helped them build this life. Mrs. Chen cried through the entire thing. Both Marcuses showed up with flowers. The book club kids served as a chaotic but enthusiastic wedding party. Sarah documented everything for social media naturally. Lily stood between them during the ceremony, holding both their hands, and when the officiant asked if anyone objected, she announced loudly, "I object to this taking so long. Can we get to the part with cake?" Everyone laughed, and Noah thought about his father, who would have loved this. Who would have loved Avery and the way she'd helped save the store he'd built? Who would have been proud of Noah for choosing love over fear, for building something real instead of just surviving? "I wish your dad could see this," Avery whispered during their first dance, which was really their first awkward shuffling around the cleared reading area while Lily DJ'd from Noah's phone. "I think he can," Noah said, "and I think he's happy." "Are you happy?" "I'm terrified and overwhelmed and completely out of my depth. But yeah, I'm happy, the happiest I've ever been." "Me too." Avery rested her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for letting me crash into your life. Thank you for staying after the crash." By summer, they'd opened the second Walker's Books location in a different neighborhood that had been underserved by bookstores. It was smaller than the original, but perfectly formed, with a focus on diverse voices and community programming. They hired 2 staff members from the neighborhood, including a woman who'd recently immigrated and reminded Avery of her grandmother. The original store continued to thrive. The book clubs had expanded to 6 different groups across age ranges and interests. The cafe had become a neighborhood gathering place. The event's calendar was booked solid, with author readings, writing workshops, and literacy programs. They'd done it. Against all odds, despite all the reasons it shouldn't have worked, they'd built something sustainable and meaningful and real. On Lily's 9th birthday in August, they threw a party at the store that was attended by what seemed like half the neighborhood. There were books and cake and games and chaos. Lily held court like a tiny queen, accepting gifts and well wishes with the grace of someone who'd always known she was loved. That evening, after everyone had gone home and Lily was reading her new books in bed, Noah and Avery sat in the reading corner and surveyed the wreckage of wrapping paper and cake crumbs. "We should clean this up," Noah said without moving. "We really should," Avery agreed, also not moving. "In a minute, say, in a minute." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when 2 people have learned each other's rhythms completely. Noah thought about the year that had passed, about everything that had changed and everything that had stayed the same. The store was still the store, but bigger and stronger. Lily was still Lily, but with an extra parent who adored her. He was still himself, but less alone, less scared, less convinced that happiness was something that happened to other people. "I have news," Avery said quietly. Noah turned to look at her. "Good news or bad news?" "Good news. Great news, actually, but also terrifying news." She took his hand. "I'm pregnant." The world tilted sideways for a moment while Noah's brain processed this information. There's going to be a baby? There's going to be a baby. Surprise? How long have you? I found out yesterday. I wanted to tell you immediately, but then the party planning took over, and I thought maybe after, in a quiet moment. She stopped, studying his face anxiously. "Are you okay? Is this okay?" Noah realized he was crying. "It's more than okay. Avery, I don't even have words. We're going to have a baby." "We're going to have a baby," she repeated, and now she was crying too. "I'm completely terrified. I don't know how to be a mother. I don't know if I'll be any good at it." "You're already a mother, to Lily. You've been mothering her for over a year now, and you're wonderful at it." "That's different. Lily came pre-made with personality and opinions and the ability to tell me when I'm doing something wrong. Babies are helpless. What if I break it?" "You won't break it. And I'll help. And Lily will help once we tell her. She's been asking for a sibling since she was 6. Noah pulled Avery close. "We're going to figure this out together, like we figure everything else out. Messily, imperfectly, but together." They told Lily the next morning over breakfast. She stared at them for a long moment, fork suspended halfway to her mouth, processing. I'm going to be a big sister? You are, Avery confirmed, like a real big sister with a real baby sibling who I'll have to share my room with and teach things to and protect from bullies? Eventually, yes, though the baby will probably have its own room and won't need protecting from bullies for a while. Lily set down her fork very carefully. This is the best news ever. I'm going to teach them everything. How to read, how to pick good books, how to negotiate with Dad for extra cookies, everything. She paused. Can I name them? You can help pick a name, Noah said diplomatically, but the final decision is a group effort. That's fair? When do they get here? About 7 more months. That's so long. Can we get books about being a big sister, and books about babies, and maybe books about names so I can make a list of good ones? Of course, Lily would want to research via books. She was Noah's daughter through and through. The pregnancy progressed normally, which meant Avery was exhausted and nauseous for the first trimester and gradually became more human as the months passed. She worked at the store until her 6th month, then switched to mostly remote work, handling finances, planning the expansion of the nonprofit arm, doing all the things that didn't require being on her feet for 8 hours. Lily took her role as big sister in training seriously. She read every book about siblings and babies that the store carried. She attended prenatal appointments when her schedule allowed and asked the doctor questions that suggested she was either going to be a physician or a deeply informed 9-year-old. She helped set up the nursery, debated color schemes with the intensity of an interior designer, and vetoed several name suggestions on the grounds that they didn't sound like someone who would like books. In February, on a snowy Tuesday evening, almost exactly 2 years after Avery had sat on Noah in that cafe, their daughter arrived. Clara Lynn Walker, 7 pounds and extremely opinionated, entered the world screaming and didn't stop for what felt like days. Lily held her baby sister for the first time in the hospital and cried. She's so small and perfect and loud. She's all of those things, Avery agreed, exhausted but smiling. I'm going to teach her everything, Lily said seriously, starting with books. Can we read to her even though she can't understand yet? We can absolutely read to her. So they did. In the hospital room, with Avery recovering and Noah running on no sleep and pure adrenaline, Lily read to her baby sister From Where the Wild Things Are, the book that had started their book club tradition, the story about being wild but always coming home. When they brought Clara home 3 days later, the neighborhood had decorated the store. Banners and balloons and a sign that read, "Welcome home, baby Walker." Mrs. Chen had organized a meal train. Sarah had created a birth announcement for social media that immediately got hundreds of likes. The book club kids had made cards with drawings of babies and books. It was overwhelming and beautiful and exactly right. The first few months were chaos. Clara didn't sleep, which meant nobody slept. The store required constant attention. Lily needed homework help and emotional support and reassurance that she was still important, even with a new baby in the house. Avery was recovering and learning to breastfeed and dealing with postpartum hormones that made her cry at diaper commercials. Noah held it all together through sheer force of will and a truly unhealthy amount of coffee. I don't know how you did this alone with Lily, Avery said one night at 3 a.m. while they both walked Clara around the living room, trying to soothe her crying. I don't either. I think I just didn't have a choice, so I made it work somehow. Well, I'm glad you don't have to do it alone this time. Me too. Noah kissed her temple, even though we're both slowly dying from sleep deprivation. It gets better, right? Everyone says it gets better. It gets different. Whether that's better depends on your definition. Avery laughed quietly. That's not reassuring. Would you prefer a comforting lie? Yes, actually. It gets so much better. Clara will sleep through the night by next week, and you'll feel human again, and everything will be easy and perfect forever. Much better, thank you. It didn't get better by the next week, but it did get easier gradually. Clara started sleeping in slightly longer stretches. Avery's body healed. They found a rhythm that worked for their family, Noah handling mornings at the store, Avery taking afternoons, both of them trading off night duty with Clara. Lily helped in her own way, reading to her sister and bringing diapers and proving to be surprisingly good at making Clara laugh. By spring, they'd settled into something that resembled normal life. The store was doing well enough that they'd hired additional staff, giving Noah and Avery more flexibility. The second location had become self-sustaining. The nonprofit was serving 3 different communities. Clara was sleeping in 4-hour stretches, which felt like luxury. They were making it work. One evening in May, Noah found Avery in the store after hours, sitting in the reading corner with Clara asleep in her arms. She was looking at the shelves of books with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You okay?" he asked quietly, not wanting to wake the baby. "I was just thinking about my grandmother, about how much she would have loved this place, how proud she would have been that I finally found something worth fighting for." Avery looked down at Clara. "I wish she could meet her great-granddaughter. I wish I could tell her that I understand now what she was building with that bakery. It wasn't about the bread or the profit. It was about creating something that mattered to people, about being essential instead of just useful." Noah sat beside her, putting his arm around her shoulders. "I think she knows, and I think she'd be proud of you." "You think?" "I know. You took everything she taught you about community and meaning and mattering, and you built something beautiful. 2 somethings, actually." He gestured at Clara, then around the store. "This is her legacy as much as it is my father's. All of this started because 2 people believed that small things could be important, that feeding people, with bread, with books, was worth dedicating a life to." Avery leaned against him, careful not to disturb the sleeping baby. "How did I get so lucky? To find you, to find this life, to get a second chance at being a person who matters?" I ask myself the same question. About you, about all of this. Sometimes I still can't believe it's real. It's real. We're real. This family, this store, this life we built, it's all real. They sat like that for a long time, surrounded by books and possibility, holding their daughter and each other, grateful for accidents that turned into destiny. On the 2-year anniversary of the day they met, Noah suggested they go back to the river's edge, the cafe where it had all started. "Is that too cheesy?" he asked, revisiting the scene of the crime. "It's perfectly cheesy," Avery said. "Let's do it." They went on a Tuesday morning, just the 2 of them. Mrs. Chen had volunteered to watch both girls. The cafe was exactly as Noah remembered it, crowded and warm and smelling of coffee and rain. They got a table in the corner, though not the same table because someone else was sitting there, and ordered black coffee for Noah and something complicated for Avery. "Do you remember what you were thinking that day?" Avery asked, "when I sat on you?" "I remember thinking my life was falling apart and nothing would ever be okay again. I remember being so deep in hopelessness that a stranger sitting on me was the most interesting thing that had happened in months." Noah smiled. "What about you?" "I remember being late for a meeting I didn't want to attend, running on 4 hours of sleep and 3 espressos, completely absorbed in my own stress. And then I sat on you and you laughed, and it was so unexpected that it knocked me completely off balance. Like the universe was saying, pay attention to this moment." "And did you? Pay attention?" "Not at first. I went to that meeting and spent the whole time distracted, thinking about the guy in the coffee shop who laughed instead of yelling. It took me 3 days to work up the courage to look up your bookstore. Another 4 days to actually walk in." Avery reached across the table and took his hand. "Best decision I ever made." "Second best," Noah corrected. "The best was agreeing to marry us." "Fair point." They sat drinking their coffee, watching the other customers rush through their own busy lives, and Noah thought about how much could change in 2 years. How a single moment, a woman looking for a seat, a man who chose to laugh instead of being angry, could reshape everything that came after. "You know what Lily asked me yesterday?" Avery said. "She asked if I was glad I sat on you that day, if I'd do it again knowing everything that would happen." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I'd sit on you 100 times, 1,000, that I'd live through all of it, the scary parts and the hard parts, and the moments when I wanted to run away, just to end up here. With you, with her, with Clara, with this life we built. That some accidents are actually destiny wearing a disguise." Noah felt his eyes getting wet, which was happening more and more frequently these days. Fatherhood and love had made him soft in the best way. "I love you," he said simply. "Thank you for crashing into my life. Thank you for catching me when I fell. They'd They finished their coffee and walked back to the bookstore hand in hand, ready to return to their beautiful, chaotic, impossible life. Ready for book clubs and diaper changes and late-night inventory counts. Ready for Lily's questions and Clara's cries and Mrs. Chen's unsolicited advice. Ready for all of it, together. When they opened the door, they found Lily had organized an impromptu celebration. She'd made a banner that said, "Happy Sitting on Dad Anniversary," with illustrations of the fateful coffee shop meeting. The regular customers were there, all the people who'd watched their story unfold, who'd supported the store through its near death and resurrection. Sarah had made a cake decorated to look like a coffee cup. "Surprise!" Lily shouted. "I know you wanted it to be just the two of you, but I thought we should celebrate as a family, because the day Avery sat on you was the day our family started." Noah looked at Avery, who was crying and laughing at the same time, and he thought about how right Lily was. That ridiculous, embarrassing, perfect moment in a crowded cafe had been the beginning of everything. Not just their relationship, but the saving of the store, the building of a family, the creation of a life that mattered. They'd chosen to stay, all of them. Chosen each other, chosen this place, chosen to build something real instead of just surviving. And that choice had made all the difference. Mrs. Henderson raised a plastic cup of coffee and a toast. To Walker's books, to the family that runs it, to the power of accidents and second chances and refusing to give up on things that matter. To finding home, Avery added quietly, looking around at the store, at Noah, at Lily holding baby Clara, at the community they'd built together. To finding home, Noah echoed, and there, surrounded by books and people they loved, in the store that had almost died but had been saved by stubbornness and hope, and a woman who'd accidentally sat in the right place at the right time, they celebrated. Not just the anniversary of their meeting, but the life they'd built from that impossible beginning. They celebrated choosing to stay when running would have been easier. They celebrated believing in second chances and impossible things. They celebrated family, the one you're born into and the one you choose, and the one you build from coffee spills and courage and love. And somewhere, Noah thought, his father was smiling. Proud of the store they'd saved, proud of the family they'd become, proud of his son for learning what he'd always known, that the best things in life are worth fighting for, even when the fight seems unwinnable, especially then. P. The bookstore would face more challenges. There would be hard months and difficult decisions and moments of doubt, but they would face them together, as partners, as family, as people who'd learned that showing up was the bravest thing you could do. And every Tuesday afternoon, when the book club kids gathered in the reading corner and Lily led discussions with the confidence of someone who'd always known books could change lives, Noah would catch Avery's eye across the room and remember. Remember the coffee shop. Remember the choice to laugh instead of being angry. Remember the decision to try instead of running away. Remember that sometimes the best love stories start with someone falling, literally, into your life when you least expect it. And he would smile, grateful for accidents and destiny, and the beautiful, impossible, perfectly imperfect life they'd built from both. This was home. This was family. This was everything. And they were never running away again.